Hello again, friends! And you are our friends. Maybe not this chair's friends, and maybe not for too much longer, but welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here. Another very popular edition on this beautiful fall day. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. We have reviews, questions, songs, hijinks, and maybe some trouble here this week on the show. And of course, the trouble will be started and led by this man, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
If you're looking for trouble, you come to the right place. Can we just move this along, friendly Brian, friend to the children? Can we just move this along? I got business to attend to later on, besides servicing the fine customers of Cornette's Collectibles that have invested their hard-earned money with me. I gotta deal with that. I've got a serious amount of mole tamping to do later on. As soon as we get finished with this, I'm going to be out with the tamping mole runs. Are you there?
I am.
Well, as I said, keep moving it along. I've got tamping to do.
Tamping of the mole runs?
Tamping of the mole runs. Are you hard of hearing, boy?
What does that mean?
What are you talking about?
What is tamping the mole run? I've never encountered this ever.
Out tamping the mole runs. I've just explained it to you.
What do? You better not say, I tamp. What is tamping? What is
tamp? Can you tamp? What the fuck? What is this real life? What don't you understand about that? This fucking mole in my front yard that I've chased him all around the property. A little bastard. He's more vindictive and a hardier breed than the groundhog on Caddyshack. I've chased him all around. Well, now he's come right next to the driveway, right as you walk out of the garage. He's come right up to the front, right in between the dogwood, and he bonked his head on the front walkway because he couldn't go through that because that's concrete and stone. So he turned immediate right, and he went all the way down about 40 feet down the side of the walkway. And when you walk out now, you can see it, and because there's grass there, he didn't even break the ground. There's no mole mound, as some people call them. It's just a fucking mole run, and it's underneath the grass, but it sticks up like a speed bump in a subdivision, all the way halfway down the front of my front walk, and then suddenly it ends because he went somewhere else. And it's annoying to look at. Of a grassy speed bump down half of my walkway, so I'm going to take my tamp, and I'm going to go out later on, and I'm going to tamp the mole run down. What do you do with your tamp up there in New Jersey?
I've never dealt with tamp or moles, to be quite honest with you.
What?
We don't have a mole problem up here.
You don't have a single mole in your area?
No, not since I stopped working with Yenta Bix. I don't have a single mole in my fucking area. No, I'm kidding. No, I've never encountered moles. I've encountered bears and deers and foxes, coyotes.
Lions and tigers?
Yeah. Well, not them.
Oh, my.
But maybe soon.
Well, the fucking mole is the worst annoyance that you'll encounter. But I can't. So what do you use a tamp for up there then?
I don't think we have a tamp on hand.
You don't have a tamp?
Not on hand.
What the hell's the matter with you, son?
What other uses would I have for this tamp?
Right now, you've just said that out in public, and now the next time that you have an emergency that only having a tamp would solve, people are going to point at you and laugh at you as, look at Brian Tampless Last over there. He could have saved his entire family from falling into that bottomless mole run if he'd have had a tamp, but no, now he's lost all of them, the kids, the dog, everything. He hears the distant, faint sound of Swami barking from underneath the ground late at night. If he'd only had a tamp.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have that problem. And I don't think anyone's going to be around laughing because they can't get over there.
Tampless Last.
Am I invisible?
Actually, light does bend around you in some cases. I've mentioned that I'm addressing the needs of the the multitudes that have purchased material from Cornette's Collectibles between October 1st and October 6th. We opened JimCornette.com flawlessly, did not crash. That thing, you can beat on it. You can take a stick and wail on it. But I tell you, them servers are flexing their muscles. That server, the server that we're on now with JimCornette.com rides around in a convertible with the top down and one of those muscle shirts doing a double bicep pose down the middle of the main street. That's how badass that our server is now. And now that I don't have anything for sale, go ahead and try to crash that motherfucker and see what happens. I double dog dare you. Because you can still go to JimCornette.com and get links to the YouTube channel and to the podcast here that we do and to the Patreon page and to the many and various things that I'm involved with or have my finger in. You can still link to all that stuff, and it's a fine site. But as I mentioned, we did close the store down 5 days later because we got too many orders, as we kind of predicted. And now Hotchkiss has helped me out. We've sorted the orders. Several hundred address labels have already been perpetrated. Things are out in stacks, pictures, books, T-shirts, etc., multiple items. And we're going to be starting by the end of this week. The first couple of 100 autograph pictures and Cult of Cornette membership certificates will have gone out. And then we're going to try to keep up a pace of 300 to 400 packages a week for the next 6 weeks or so. We'll see how that works out. Basically, for 5 days a week, I'm going to be doing merch. And 2 days a week, I'm going to be joining you, Brian, to do these fine broadcasts that we do.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it's going to be enjoyable. And Harley wants to help. She's sitting right there looking at me, looking over my shoulder while I do every bit of it. She wants to help, but unfortunately I can't afford her hourly because then I've got to go through PETA. When you hire a puppy dog like that, you've got to follow certain minimum requirements, and then you got to go through the animal rights people. She's really expensive. She's going to stick to modeling.
All right. Well, this is my show.
It's your show.
And someone's got to save it. I might as well give it a shot. But before we get to any of these questions, and quite frankly, if anyone's going to save this show, it will be the listeners of the program who send in these questions.
Well, in that case, we're fucking doomed. Doomed, I say.
Well, speaking of doomed, let's talk about some of the wrestling that you made us watch for this program this week.
Well, I know now. Don't blame all this on me.
Why not?
I'm trying to get my notepad out. It's been a day or two since I've seen this stuff. What do you want to talk about first on the Friday Night Wars?
Well, SmackDown aired first.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, hold on. You know what? Before we even talk about this, did you see this tweet from Tony Khan the other day about, I guess, next Friday?
I don't know. I can't see what you're pointing at.
The tweet about next Friday, SmackDown, and AEW having a half-hour overrun?
Well, I did hear this, that they are doing that because SmackDown is 2.5 hours instead of 2 hours. So naturally, that would be a half-hour overrun into the normally allotted slot for Rampage, right? So what's Tony's comment about it?
Well, at 11:32 p.m. on October 8th, which would have been Friday, so it would have been right after Rampage aired, and I'm sure right after cocktails started flowing, Tony tweeted out, "I saw you're doing a half-hour head-to-head with us. I can't wait to finally beat your main show head-to-head. It's been a long time coming. See you next Friday for AEW Rampage on AEW on TNT."
Actually, hold on here 1 second. That was a piece of work. I appreciate that. You know why he said that, don't you?
What do you mean?
That show probably will beat SmackDown.
Oh, I think
10 to 10:30.
I mean, they're going to try to stack it. I mean, that's going to be the half hour where they try to put...
No, I don't care. I don't care if they show Mickey Mouse cartoons. They're probably going to beat SmackDown from 10 to 10:30. You know why, don't you?
CM Punk?
No. God damn it. Am I on a fucking time warp? Didn't they just advertise on the SmackDown this past week? Or I saw it somewhere in front of my face. SmackDown next week on Friday night is not on Fox. It's on FS1 because of some kind of ball game.
Oh, that's right.
So Tony saw that. So, okay, well, there you go. I can fucking looking forward to beating your #1 show when it's on the equivalent of cable access instead of the normal network broadcast. So that was very, very well played. That's like when Medusa did the fucking royalty check rib and tweeted out the picture of her royalty check where she made like $500,000 because she took a picture and cropped the 2 columns to the right off where it says what she actually got. And it looked great. And I had to applaud that also. I applaud this. Tony realized that, yeah, they probably, what were the ratings of Smackdown the last time they went over to, is it FS1? I'm saying that correctly, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
That got you curious enough to look now and see, so you know what you're talking about here on this program?
I can look about that. I don't think I'm going to know where to find right now the Smackdown ratings the last time they were on FS1.
I think you're going to know what you're talking about on this program, but you can...
For the last time they were on FS1, it's going to take me a few minutes to find that.
Well, God damn it. You should be...
Especially if I'm talking to you instead of typing. Instead of defending myself for my inability to find it, I could be trying to find it, but
why don't we have Jay Sharknado sitting in on this stuff, or Kippelman, or somebody can just a stooge at our beck and call to just come up with these factoids when we need it.
I wouldn't consider any of those men to be stooges. They're all fine, intelligent.
I thought you were going to say I wouldn't consider any of those men to be smart enough to find those factoids. Well,
where have you taken this show?
I don't know. It's your show. I'm just trying to get you to run it. Here's the thing. Yes, I applaud Tony Khan for what he just said, because they probably will beat if they are in their normal time slot on a program they've established for the past, 2 months. And a lot of people like you may not know that SmackDown's not going to be on Fox. So there you go. All these things work together in consort with each other. I think they'll probably somewhat outpace them, depending on what I can't imagine they did 1 million viewers the last time they were on FS1 for SmackDown. So
they averaged, if the last time they were on was December of 2020, which may be, I don't know if they were on since then, they averaged just over 1 million. Yeah, 1 million viewers.
So right about that. Okay, well, and it may be a little bit of a dogfight. Let's see what happens.
And if they lose, and if for that half hour WWE loses, and here's Tony Khan taunting them at 11:30 at night in a tweet a week beforehand, how he can't wait to kick your ass, is there any reaction internally to the fact that the owner of the company, it's kind of now Vince's worst nightmare, a combination of Bischoff with Ted Turner, the money and that arrogance put together, and you get this?
Well, but then also it could blow up on Tony, because that's okay. Let's look at the Rampage ratings since Punk debuted, and it was well over 1 million. So they'd been safe, but they've dropped down. They jumped back up for something else involving Punk, as I recall. But even if he loads that up, it's still a challenge for them to get 1 million people on the Friday night now, unless they say, oh, by the way, Bray Wyatt will debut fucking Friday night or whatever. But then again, SmackDown being on FS1 last time for 2 hours did 1 million, not for 2.5 hours. Now it's an extra half an hour later at night. Attrition. Did people get the memo that it was going to be 2.5 hours? It's going to be close either way, but it's going to look bad for Tony if he took that leap of faith and they end up losing by 200,000 people. It's going to look fucking... They're going to try to excuse it with all the excuses that I just gave on the WWE side. If they lose by 50,000 or 25,000 or whatever, they're going to bring up all those facts, which are all going to be correct, but still they lost as Tony predicted. So it's going to look shitty for them. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, nobody thinks, and it would be insane to say that Rampage anytime in the near future on Friday nights at 10 o'clock on TNT is going to beat SmackDown on the Fox network.
Well, speaking of which, Smackdown on the Fox
Smackdown
Network.
on the Fox Network?
Yes, we did in fact watch it. And imagine if this past week, the last half hour of SmackDown went up against the first half hour of Rampage. It would have been very interesting to see what happened, because that last half hour of SmackDown was
Did you watch
grueling.
the whole goddamn show?
I had it on in the background, and every now and then I would forget to hit the 30-second forward button because there are so many commercials that you fast forward through the commercials and then you end up in another commercial. So I just gave up and I just put the remote down and said, I'm just going to play this in the background and I'm going to look up when I'm interested and I'm going to look away when I'm not. And
so you basically never looked up again.
After the opening segment, there was very little to look up to.
There was,
so to speak.
All I need someone to look up to. Well, and I must say this for the record, right here, out loud. I'll come out with it. I'll bring it forth. This was the best that I have ever seen Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in a promo segment. I've said that before, they normally look or sound like they're doing a scene from the, an afternoon talk show hosted by some pseudo psychiatrist or whatever, or an offshoot of Offspring, an offspring of the Jerry Springer Show. But this was a great fucking verbal segment. And obviously, my new favorite female promo, Big Time Bex, I like Britt Baker. I started to say Brooke Benton. And I love Rainy Nights in Georgia, too. But I like Britt Baker as a heel promo. But she's an entertaining heel promo. You love to hate her, whatever. Becky Lynch is coming off just like an in-command, really asshole-ish bitch. And it's a completely different gimmick, and she's not supposed to necessarily have little funny lines, but her whole thing is her attitude, and it's more real to me than I think any of the other girls in the WWE. They started the SmackDown show with again, poor beleaguered Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, his assistant or second in command or whatever, are in the ring, and it's another contract signing, allegedly. How many contract signings have we seen poor Adam Pearce? They ought to charge him rent for he's in the ring now more than he was when he was wrestling.
He should go to law school. He should go to law school. He's handling all these contracts. Study contract law. He's ready for it.
Yes, I think he is. But anyway, they're in the ring, and Bianca Belair is in the ring. Sasha Banks is standing on the announce desk because they wanted to keep separation between the ladies involved. And Big Time Bex, old Becky Lynch, is at her own table and chair with her feet up on the table in the entrance aisleway. And apparently the triple threat is at Crown Jewel. They will not, on any of their graphics or any mention verbally or anything, say where Crown Jewel is actually taking place at, will they?
I don't know.
Because I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. Apparently you didn't watch very closely, but I'm wondering.
I didn't notice that. I heard the references to Crown Jewel, but I didn't even notice if they said Saudi Arabia or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. One of our eagle-eyed or eagle-eared, or actually, do eagles have ears? If so, are they good? Or what's the fucking, because like bats, they have radar.
Elephants have ears.
Well, and they got elephant ear sandwiches. That's where I was saying, but I don't know where they get those big fucking buns. But nevertheless, what has good ears? Is it a wolf-eared viewer, listener to us?
A blind man.
Well, no.
Yes, they say when you lose one of your senses, the other senses get more action. I don't know what the term would be.
His eyesight was already deaf to begin with. Then how would that help him?
I don't know, but I would donate to his
said the blind man to the deaf dog that used to belong to the crippled tightrope walker. But nevertheless, one of our listeners that are not just fleet of foot and sound of mind, but also turkey of ear. Listen, figure this out. How often is the point I was going to make? Do they advertise to the general public? We all know this show is taking place in Saudi Arabia because we follow their goddamn the news and their conference calls and their fucking tweets and the blah, blah, blah. We know everything, right? But the average person walking down the street, smiling at everybody they meet, the average hot child in the city running wild and looking pretty, do they know this thing's in Saudi Arabia, and how does the WWE disseminate that information, and how often, and how hard do they go to try to bury it, is what I'm wondering.
Usually they get Nick Gilder to write a song about it, and 45 years later, people remember.
And I'm wondering if they're so ashamed, as they should be, of taking the Saudi Arabian blood money from the country that held them hostage at one point, and that, beheads with bone saws journalists and things and such of that nature. Why do they bother advertising at all? If they're getting $50 million over here, why do they put it on the network and let everybody see here they are in Saudi Arabia? That's part of the disinformation campaign, where the Saudis want people to think that it's Disneyland over there, the happiest place on earth, right? Every head that you see rolling down the hill from where they've been beheaded in Saudi Arabia has a smile on its face. That's what I've heard. Anyway.
Right. We were talking about Sasha and Becky and Bianca.
We sure were. This opening segment, it was a fine piece of business. Except I'm wondering, after each one of them, they're standing out there, as I mentioned, the one on the table and the one in the ring and the one in the aisleway. And after each of them was introduced, a VTR history package would play. And I'm wondering, are they playing that? I guess they are for the fans live on the big screen. But it has to be, for a live event, that has to be an interminable experience to go through, where you're sitting there for 5 minutes watching these individual girls stand in their places and just be introduced while a video plays on the screen. If you want to watch television, you could have probably watched it on TV at home instead of paying the $50 or whatever. But anyway, I love Becky Lynch. She's got the feet up. She's the female Conor McGregor. The attitude, the delivery, the accent adds to it, especially when she's insulting. She calls Bianca Belair Esther, and Sasha Banks is the disco ball looking fool. And she's got the facials and just the demeanor, as the Fink would say. And as I mentioned, it's different that Britt Baker's a heel of a different sort than Becky Lynch. I'm liking this because you can tell Britt's yanking your chain on the bitchy comments because they're fun too, and she's got the wink wink with Tony. But Becky, of course, Becky Lynch was the most popular girl in the world, right next to Sally Field, a year and a half ago, before she took off, and then they decided to switch her so you could look back and go, well, no, but she's really nice. But if you're just looking at this, she comes off like what do they call them, Brian? The See You Next Tuesdays?
Must-see TV. I don't think we could discuss that here on the show.
But that's the point I'm making. Does she not come off as more real and less like she's reciting something that someone has told her to say in some character that someone has told her to have? She's just got that shit-sniffing look when she's, what about you? With the accent. I like that.
I don't know what that voice was, but I agree with you.
What about you?
Other than whatever your attempt to impersonate Becky Lynch is. What does she say? What does she say? What
about you? You disco ball looking fool. And you, Esther.
You sound like an old wizard.
They all sound so... There's so much more disdain in the voice, the human voice, when it's got that accent from where she's from over there where she's from. Now
you don't know where she's from. You don't know where she's from.
Where she's from, but now I sound like Daphne on Frasier. Where she's from.
Sounds like you're traveling across Europe. You've had like 5 different accents in the last
Hey, a tour around the world with Jim Cornette, by the way. But anyway, so they had their promo back and forth, and the other ladies were good as well, better than normal, where they put more oomph into it. And then I got a kick out of Bianca Belair tried to throw her big old chair, the chair like you should have instead of that squeaky hunk of shit. She tried to throw her chair at Becky Lynch, and she's so short she couldn't get it over the top rope on the first try. The wheels hung, and then she got mad and kind of pushed it, and it only went like 5 feet. So that was a little flat. But then Becky flipped the table over perfectly, badass. Landed right on top, and she walked right over it. She looked so badass, like she may have planned it that way, but that's like flipping one of those bottles, right? Sometimes it doesn't cooperate. And then at the end of honestly, I was loving it completely until they got physical. And once they got in the quote unquote fight, except for Becky Lynch's kicks, everything else looked pretty sloppy. But then they did the spot where Bianca Belair fireman's carried both of them, and Sasha Banks slipped off the top of it, so she spun around and did the Three Stooges ladder spot. And boom, knocked Sasha Banks onto the table, and fireman's carried Becky Lynch onto Sasha through the table. And if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet have not left the ground. That sounded like one of the hokiest descriptions that I've ever given. But the way they did it, it didn't come off as awkward. It actually worked out to be a good spot.
Yeah, it was great. It was perfect.
And I would have bet the house that would have not have been the case if I'd heard about it beforehand. But that looked great. So boom, and there you go. So, well, you disco ball looking fool.
Hey, you sound like an old witch. You don't sound like.
Oh no! What? Hey,
come here, my dearie.
I never said I was a goddamn impressionist or an accentist.
That's right.
Anyway, that was that segment. What'd you think of anything I missed in that segment? Are you gonna praise me? Are you gonna pet my head? You gonna rub me behind the ear, Brian, for at least liking some of your girls there more than I normally do?
I am impressed that you gave this a chance, and I thought this was great. I thought Bianca was a star here. I thought all 3 women here were 3 women who seemed like main event quality stars. The way they presented themselves, the way they delivered the bullshit they're given, the physicality, and everyone was over. The fans reacted to everyone. There wasn't someone there who was wutted or booed or shut down. This was great. I loved it. And it was downhill from here with the rest of this show. This was the only thing on this entire show I actually truly loved.
Well, I can't agree with you. There was one more thing that I truly loved. Was, again, the brilliance of Happy Heyman, the Jovial Jew. Paul Heyman is without a doubt, he is the De Niro of our time now in wrestling. I don't know whether he is just having fun for himself now, because it's like he's so far ahead of everybody else on the program as a performer, as an orator, as a person with the elocution, the excellence of elocution, and the emotions and etc. Roman Reigns again comes out with Paul and the Usos. And it's Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. We don't get it at Survivor Series or at Royal Rumble or at WrestleMania. The Saudis get it. The Saudis with the blood money running through the streets of the town. Anyway, so, of course, Roman Reigns told the crowd to acknowledge him. And then they were in San Jose. Of course, you got to know that there's some Samoan contingents there in San Jose. So they were getting cheered. But he told them to acknowledge Paul, the wise man, for getting the Usos to Raw. And Paul's all smiles. He's got his chest as far out as it'll go. It still won't go any farther in front of his stomach than normal, but he's got it stuck out. And he's all smiles. And Roman Reigns says, I love you, Paul. part of the family, et cetera, et cetera. You know, now we want you to be wise, come clean, tell the truth. And as he's starting to turn on to Paul to get stern with him, to explain that he wants to know the truth about Brock Lesnar, the people tried to hijack the segment. They started chanting Suplex City, and Reigns blows them right off perfectly and goes right back to his point and shut them down, and they did shut up. That was very good for Mr. Reigns. But Paul needs to tell the truth about him being responsible, whether or not he is, for Brock Lesnar being a free agent. And again, geez, I can't do it justice by the description. It's like watching a master thespian, as I've mentioned, of a Laurence Olivier, a Sir Michael Redgrave, a Barrymore, any of the ones that weren't drunk, or if there were any ones that weren't drunk, or even when some of the ones that were drunk weren't drunk.
You talking thespians or Barrymores?
Barrymores, thespians, whatever the case. It's nevertheless, he's up there in the upper echelons. He started out with the humana, professing his loyalty. He's got the lip quiver. He's been with the family for 40 years. He's groveling brilliantly. But then as he grovels brilliantly, you see on his face and in the change of his delivery and in the tone and the confidence that he has, as it begins to build and as he gets more and more confidence in himself, as he starts thinking of the big pitch, the big lie, the big swerve, the big con that can get him out of this. And as he begins double talking and thinking of that and then delivering it to the big buildup, and he starts even thinking he's going to get by with this. And then suddenly Roman Reigns cuts him off and says, "Don't tell me, tell Brock." And he makes Paul. Well, I'll tell you what, they ought to. If Paul had a ball gag and Roman Reigns had like a leash and a fucking whip, it would have been great.
Stop it.
He turns Paul to the camera. Turn to the camera. I want you to say this to the camera, bitch. And he says, "Tell Brock." And he makes Paul Heyman cut a promo on Brock Lesnar and what Roman Reigns is going to do to Brock Lesnar as the people are chanting, "We want Lesnar." And Heyman cuts the promo. He starts out by putting Brock over to try to soften the thing that he's going to deliver, and possibly with a twinkle in his eye, if he and Brock indeed are in some kind of conspiracy, you may see that he's giving Brock an Iggy of some kind, but he finally tells him he's met his match. And then cuts the fucking event, goes to the end of it, boom. Roman Reigns will be the reigning undisputed, blah, 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 blah. What a masterclass. Then turns and kneels down and prays with his head down and his hands up to Roman Reigns. Just absolutely brave. I want to see that match more than anything I can think about, just to see what the fuck they're going to do with fucking Paul. And also to see him in Saudi Arabia. But that was brilliant. I'm just, he's so far above everybody else now. He's got to be just doing this just to keep his mind sharp for fun or something, because it's not even a fucking contest. But that was the other thing on the show. Well, and also, Edge and Rollins had a heck of a good fight for about the last minute and a half around ringside.
Come on.
No, I liked for a minute and a half, they had a good fight. I didn't watch any of the promos or any of the build-ups or anything else, but they had some oomph in their fight at ringside. And then Edge challenged him. That was good. Otherwise, that's all I watched of the show.
I had it on in the background. It was a bunch of crap, and I felt bad. It really hit me. Cesaro's a great wrestler. Finn Balor's really good.
Yeah, I felt guilty not wanting to watch it.
Yeah. And it felt like I like both those guys, and I didn't really have any desire to see the match. And I think it's because it was here on SmackDown. Because if that same match was on another show, I probably would enjoy it. But it's just this whole fucking environment and Michael Cole.
I'm telling you, sometimes, remember when all the guys that were on TV for Impact Wrestling were working in independent shows that drew tons more money than Impact Wrestling?
That's right.
Well, there you go.
But Seth Rollins was insufferable on this show. That's what you skip past. It was insufferable. And they give him so much time for all of us to suffer. He's insufferable, and then you just suffer, and it keeps going and going, and he went to Edge's house, and I had to replay as much of that as possible. And then Edge shows up, and there's a camera on him, and then the brawl. This sucks. Seth Rollins, I don't want to see this guy anymore.
Well, imagine now, next week, they got an extra half hour to suck some more. They can suck sand out of cement in 2.5 hours. They can suck a golf ball through a garden hose. They can suck the chrome off a trailer hitch.
Well, speaking of trailer hitches, Jim, perhaps you want to suck the chrome off your own trailer hitch, and you may not know where to get it. And in fact, I may not even know if that's the kind of auto part you can get there, but you should check it out. You should check out rockauto.com.
Well, yes, you should. And by the way, you Yankee, you don't have a Tamp. You don't know whether you can get a trailer. Of course, you can get a trailer hitch at rockauto.com. You can get anything that you need to repair and maintain your car with the fine folks at rockauto.com. Why would you want to spend 30%, 50%, 100% more for the exact same auto part at a chain store or a new car dealership when you can go to rockauto.com? You know they've got 20 million makes and models these days. I can't imagine a superstore carrying everything you need, but with rockauto.com, they do, and you can get it delivered. So, folks, they got everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. The rockauto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate, so you can quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand, specifications, and prices you prefer. Holy mackerel, if you can pick prices that you prefer, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Best of all, prices at rockauto.com, as I was just mentioning about those prices, are always reliably low. And the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why should one of these all fancy Dan mechanics with their education and things get a decent discount when you don't?
Fancy
Dan
Dan
for
mechanics.
Heaven's sake, the fancy Dan mechanics with their fancy highfalutin learning and everything, you can get the same price as the professionals at rockauto.com. You can go right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And they got a little box on there. It says, how did you hear about us? Well, don't lie to them. Tell them the Drive-Thru, or actually write JCE, because actually they don't really like your program, Brian. They like mine at rockauto.com. So write JCE in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you, and they'll keep you on file and know that you're one of us. Anyway, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
That's right, Jim. And speaking of hitches, let's hitch our way on to another show that aired on Friday night. Rampage, although only 1 hour compared to the 2 hours of pain that is Smackdown. What did you think of the 1 hour of Rampage?
Well, they again put a hitch in their get-along. Speaking of hitches, this was 2 programs. This is the real program, and then this is whatever they're doing. I don't understand. And in the middle, actually, besides, you know who I liked, and you know who I'm going to talk about, but there was somebody else in here that was exactly perfect with what they needed to do that you will probably be surprised that I mention this. So we'll talk about that in a second. However, this is the AEW Rampage for October 8th of the year of our Lord 2021, right? And again, as soon as they go on the air, they've got a nice crowd and a nice building, and they got the pyro and etc. But suddenly you hear Excrement's voice as he is the announcer who does the show billboard at the top of the program. Tonight, we're going to see blah, 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 blah. Because he sounds constipated. The words hurt coming out. There is no flow nor a tone of authority or assertiveness. It's like he's reading these bullet points as fast as he can. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and destroy the formatting here. The first match was CM Punk versus Daniel Garcia. I know everybody said, holy shit, it's come to this now. It's Ric Flair versus Vernon Deaton.
No, see, I'm not thinking that about Daniel Garcia. I know that's what you think.
No. But no, in all honesty, though, it is the reason why Punk was wrestling on this program is because the ratings have been going down when Punk don't wrestle on the program. But the problem, besides the formatting, which we're going to talk about in a second, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to get some eyeballs on this show. They need to have an excuse for CM Punk to be wrestling on this show, but they can't give away, dream matches on Friday Night Rampage. And they're trying to serve the master of the ratings and etc. But at least if you're going to do it, format the fucking thing right. I understand it. I'm with you. Why? And he did a perfect job of it, which we'll discuss why this needed to happen. But this was the formatting. You come up on the program with the crowd pans and the pyro and the stage and the announcer billboarding tonight, units when it's Friday night, you know what that means, blah, blah, blah. And instead of going out of that, like Mussolini and Vaseline, instead of going to that, you go to a goddamn three-way split screen with Mark Henry, CM Punk, and Daniel Garcia with 2.0. And you drop most of the crowd audio out. You could still hear them slightly reacting to it, which is actually even worse because you got them to be up for the show open, and instead of going right into that fucking entrance, because remember, it's 10 o'clock on fucking Wednesday night when they're at least, or after when they're taping this. So you had them up for the open. You could have segued right into like Mussolini, and you could have kept them fucking what?
You know that's not the name of the song, right?
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
You could have segued right into that, and you could have kept them up. And then instead of having the split screen where the canned comments, Punk said what he needed to say. So did the other guy, but they were canned comments that now the TV audience has seen and heard. He's seen CM Punk, and they've heard him talk. The audience in the arena, because they did Dynamite there before, has seen him come out once and has heard him talk live, and now has seen him on the screen right before he's going to come out again. You fucking lost your momentum. You slowed all the energy down. The split screen is normally done for the main event. You can argue this is the main event. Well, if they did it for that one, then they also did it for the real main event on this show, which stunk. And besides that, if you're doing it for this just because it's the main event, then you're doing that because that's what you normally do, and who gives a fuck? The point is, boom, from announcer billboarding with the crowd pans, the people are up in the pyro, like Mussolini, here comes fucking Punk. Now the people are seeing Punk in the building. For the goddamn people in the building, I don't think it makes a shit whether they hear from 2.0 or Daniel Garcia, but if it was so important for the building, you could have played that in a break so that the match would be set up before you're on television. Then, when Punk is 2/3 of the way to the ring, then you fly in the heels saying they're 30 seconds worth of shit in a box while you're still watching Punk crowd surf and do whatever the fuck he wants to do. Well, he's coming out for a match, so he's not going to crowd surf, but he's got his game face on. Then you fly the heel box out, and if you want to Punk to give them a little validation and bring them up in the fans' eyes, the heels he's about to work with, by talking about them, then let him grab the microphone and say, okay, now Garcia and your big bad ass and those two fucking discount nasty boys, bring your fucking asses on out here. and I'm going to walk the dog on all three of you. And then the people there that are now they're waking up at 10:15. Oh, shit, yeah. And then here comes the heels entrance. That, to me, would keep your fucking momentum up. Because, again, in addition to format issues, this is another effect of doing two shows in the same night, and you've just seen everything that anybody can do on Dynamite, and now it's after 10 o'clock in the building, and they've been sitting there for 3 or 4 hours, and they've got to watch Rampage. But the idea of this match was obviously to bolster the ratings, and I understand what they're doing, and I've, can sympathize, been in the situation, but you can't make too many withdrawals from your Goodwill account at the bank before you cheapen the occasion, and it's, instead of, Punk's wrestling on TV, it's, Punk's wrestling on TV again? That's what the line you got to walk. But what do you think of my formatting?
I mean, you're right in the sense that you're right, but you're wrong in the sense that I treat this like it's the Friday night AEW show. And unfortunately, that's, I think, the way a lot of the audience is treating it. And I didn't think too much of it. I also don't know what they're going to do with Mark Henry if they don't have him doing these segments.
Well, I didn't say couldn't do any segments ever. I said, in that situation, don't show your big star to the people at home and to the people in the building before you actually show him to the people in person and keep your energy level going and etc. Just reformat that particular situation. But it would have flowed better, and it would have probably helped keep the people up because, let's face it, the finish of this match was never in doubt. They were, I'm sure, glad to see CM Punk wrestle, but it's not like they were worried about his welfare in this. But then again, they had a tremendous... I've got to go back because we got so many new listeners. I've explained this before. I'm going to try again. Everybody these days has the best match possible they can with their opponent, no matter who their opponent is or how their opponent has been presented to the audience they're in front of. It's like guys sit down and say, okay, I am a main event guy in all of the independent promotions, and I travel around, and I'm usually in a main event wrestling with other guys that are fairly well known, whatever the case. And this other guy that I'm sitting down with to talk about our match, he wrestles in the first match of most independent promotions and generally doesn't win. But boy, he's a heck of a wrestler. So we're going to have the best match that we can possibly have out in front of those people tonight, which is stupid. Instead of having a match that befits the way that the individuals in that match are presented to the public. And if a main event guy and a guy who usually goes over and a guy who's usually on top goes out and has the most ball-buster competitive match in the world with a guy who never wins and who's never featured in a main event and who is a great athlete or wrestler, but for whatever reason, his size or his look or his whatever the fuck, it doesn't happen. He ain't over. He don't get pushed. Then that main event person doing that is an idiot. But there was always the need for guys that were a main event level guy to have a match for ratings or for time or for just because that's what you had with a guy that wasn't presented in that respect. Then that doesn't mean that you have to beat that guy up and chew him up and spit him out and beat him in 5 minutes. It just means you need to make whatever you are presenting make fucking sense. And the way that Punk did this and got 10 minutes or however long they went with a guy who is a good athlete, is a recent acquisition of the roster, has not been in any pay-per-view main events or held any titles or whatever, but he's got 2 heel stooges with him, and he apparently is pretty good at listening. And so therefore, Punk had a match that a main event star would have with this guy, it made sense, and it still made him look better because it's the best match that Daniel Garcia has ever had a chance to have on this program. He didn't get to do everything he's ever learned, but it's the best, most coherent, most logical match he's ever had with the biggest star he's ever been in the ring with. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is that for at least Punk understands he doesn't need to go out there and get this guy over by having this guy kick his ass in a completely preposterous fashion that nobody believes for the first 5 minutes, because that would stink. They had a match. They started with a finger lock. It's been so long. Welcome back, old friend. They did a little wrestling and struggled into a one tackle spot. Very sweet. And they weren't running off and leaving the people at 10 whatever at night also in the building. Because there's nothing worse if they'd been going 100 miles an hour and people been sitting there going, They did the little spot where Garcia chopped Punk and then did the taunt in his face, and Punk no-sold it, and with perfect timing just slapped shit out of Garcia. Boom. And then he gets pops from the people with 2 scoop slams. And then Garcia foils the third one. And then, amazingly, the heel stooges at ringside interfered and pulled Punk's leg for the heat spot, and they wrapped Punk's leg around the post. Now, the main event star that's not really been taking this guy completely seriously, and or is more pissed off at his obnoxiousness than has been wounded. Suddenly, the helpers at ringside have wrapped his leg around the fucking ring post, and he's got a reason to sell for this fucking guy in a believable fashion. Imagine that. So they go to the break with that. When they come back, again, they'd paced the first segment perfectly because Punk clearly controlled everything and wasn't being tested. But then, after Garcia mostly gets his ass kicked for 5 minutes, the Stooges have to help him. Now Punk's leg is hurt. This guy may have a chance in the story, even though all the fans that are so smart they can sit down on an ice cream cone, tell you what flavor it is in the building, know Punk's not going to get beat. They're telling the proper story. Punk is doing the right thing here. And Garcia works on the leg, and Punk sells his ass off. And did you see Garcia got not only a good pop, but an oh shit pop from the fans there with the old sit drop on the leg, because nobody does it anymore. And it looked like they thought he'd broken Punk's leg. I wish that Garcia knew the spinning toe hold. If he'd have busted that out, people would probably hit the ring. Anyway, Punk fights back. Garcia hits chop block. I've never seen somebody actually work a match on AEW television like this, where they're actually working. Garcia misses a drop kick in the corner. Punk has time to recover. Garcia goes for the single leg. Punk hits him with the short knee lift, which he sold well so the people reacted to it. They could see. They stood and traded. It wasn't the you hit me and I'll hit you. They're doing the 1-2, 1-2. It's still maybe a bit overdone at this point. I love the classic 1-2, 1-2 on a real bloodbath. But Punk was able to fight back, still selling the leg. Hit that one-footed drop kick, neck breaker, a knee lift. Somehow Garcia got under him, got an angle slam, which I thought was a little too much for Garcia there. But Punk came back with a clothesline, got a nice 2 count. They got the Punk chant going, signaled for the go to sleep. And then Garcia rolled him into the sharpshooter, but Punk got the ropes and kicked Garcia off into one of the heels and then knocked the other one off and basically got a spot in where he could crossbody all 3 of the heels on the floor coming off the top rope, which, okay, I appreciate that he can still do it, and also that he wanted to show the people he could still do it, and it was built to where it was in the right spot in the match. I don't know if as valuable as he is to their company, that I would want him jumping off the top rope to the floor in matches that weren't main events on pay-per-views, etc., but still it was done safely. So he throws the guy back in the ring, hits a clothesline, nice pile driver, put the fucking Anaconda Vice on him and tapped him out. So bottom line, yes, he went 15 minutes with an underneath guy, but it all made sense. It looked good. And he had another clinic of how to have a match. I just don't want them to devalue the specialness of him wrestling on the show against anybody by doing it too much. What do you think?
I don't disagree at all with your last point, and I think that's important. But with that said, I enjoyed the match. I really enjoyed it. I've liked Daniel Garcia since he first showed up, which was my first exposure to him. Yeah, he's skinny, and he's also young, and hopefully he'll gain some weight over the years, and you never know. I mean, Zack Sabre Jr. is still as skinny as he was when he first debuted.
Here's $50. Gain some weight, okay?
But I like Daniel Garcia.
$50 the hard way? I'm fucking with you today.
But I like Daniel Garcia, and I think he looks like an athlete in there. He may be skinny, but he looks like he's struggling. He looks like he's competing. And whatever it is, I mean, the Bootleg Nasty Boys 2.0, that one guy, I guess his name is Matt Lee, the bigger one, I find him great. He's always just cartoonish, but not too cartoonish. Like, he seems like he could be an obnoxious French Canadian, as opposed to just like some guy acting like a wacky guy.
And actually the thing is, because he kind of acts like the Nasty Boys aren't too far off from the way they are in person on television. So this could be in the same vein. He could kind of have a little bit of that to him naturally.
But I like this. I don't disagree with your point that you shouldn't waste Punk matches on Friday nights, let alone on TV, let alone against an opponent who has not really been pushed hard yet. But I also know Punk, from everything we've heard, wants to work with a lot of the younger guys, and I'm going to assume this was a match he requested. He either asked for this match or it was suggested to him, and he said, you know what, that's something I would be interested in doing.
Well, but hold on now, Cowboy. We don't want to give the impression that he's like, hey, let me wrestle on Friday night. I'm sure.
I'm not saying that.
Well, okay, I just want to clarify. He's clearing the opponents. I'm sure he's saying, okay,
yes.
So if Tony Khan goes to Punk, can you have a match on Friday night? Who would you like to wrestle with? And Punk says, well, give me such and such. I can see that, yes. But I don't want to give the impression that, he say, I need to wrestle every week.
No, and I don't think he's doing that, and I certainly don't think he's going, hey, you know what, put me on Friday. I don't think he's doing that, but I thought this was good, and I like Punk wearing the pants as opposed to the trunks. I think the pants look good.
He does look a little more, the trunks just put me off a bit for whatever reason. It was odd to me. But anyway, so yeah, that's the thing, and I'm not knocking Daniel Garcia because he was serious, and he did do a good job here, but it's just well,
if you don't mind me just saying, are you basically saying your problem with this match is the same it would be if it was CM Punk against
anybody else
who is mid-card or below right now?
Well, anybody else, because as I said at the start, you can't give away the dream matches on Friday nights. That would be crazy. It's just the fact that he's back and suddenly he's wrestling. He's wrestling often before he gets to the names that everybody wants to see. And you have to do see. A lot of people would say, "Well, Cornette, Jesus Christ, you say the guy has to come in and get over." FTR should have come in and got 6 weeks in a row of wins on TV. MJF should have come in and got 6 weeks of wins against anybody on TV because they needed to wrestle to improve their standing in the community with the fans. I don't know, unless Punk somehow saved goddamn, the fucking St. Jude's Children's Hospital from burning down. I don't see how he could have got more popular than he was at the first night he was in. So now you're making withdrawals out of the Goodwill account. Every time the people see him wrestling someone, he's having a good match. but it doesn't keep it special that he's wrestling on TV to make it a big ratings bonanza. So that's what I'm saying. That's why Bruno didn't wrestle on television for years and years when he was the champion. That's why Hogan didn't wrestle on TV for years and years when he was the champion. That was the thought process. Don't keep this as special as you can. That's all I'm saying. So it's not Daniel Garcia, it's anybody. Does that make any sense?
Well, speaking of it's anybody, did you watch the rest of the show?
Certainly, partly, yeah. Tony Schiavone did an interview with Matt Sydal, Dante Martin, and LBO Rush, and Tony is the same age as all three of those guys. Actually, no, Matt Sydal's older than he looks, so they may have Tony by about 4 or 5 years. The Acclaimed wrestled the Lucha Brothers. I will give you the notes that I made. Acclaimed jump start from behind and to floor for four-way. Back in ring and babyfaces just took back over. Prolonged four-way with everyone jumping and kicking. Then Felix dove on heel, but heel used boombox while others fought on floor. Oh, fuck it. And that's what I watched. What did I miss?
I think he pretty much got the spirit of the match. Alex was great on the runway doing his little pose. He's got lots of energy. Haven't heard him do a promo in a while. I don't know why.
Cause we enjoy it. That's why there's no. And also, if he did consistent promos from week to week, then the fans would form a cogent and coherent thought in their mind about whether the Lucha Brothers were heels or baby faces, which would then totally fuck up the booking because from week to week, we don't have a goddamn clue about that. Other than that, I can't think of any reason.
All right. Was that the last match? Was that the main event?
No.
I don't remember.
Not there yet. No, we're not there yet. Next, actually, was the other thing that I thought was perfect on this program. And I will let you guess, Brian, as to who the perpetrator of the perfectness was, in my professional opinion.
I don't remember. Was this the Jade Cargill squash match?
It certainly was.
I'm dumbfounded. I want to hear what you have to say.
Jane Cargill
Jade.
And Sky Blue.
I like her. I like Sky Blue.
Well, hey, and I like and Vivid Red and Bird's Egg Blue and Goblin Green, too. I like all those things. But this was a perfect TV match to get Jane Cargill over. It was 2 minutes or less. Everything looked stiff and made sense. The work was good. They didn't make any mistakes. At one point, good old Jane hit a bicycle kick to Sky Blue that I believe she was aiming for Miss Blue's chest and got her in the gut. But it didn't matter. It wasn't a fuck up because she hauled off and kicked this girl hard and it looked stiff and the girl went down immediately. So that wasn't a mistake in my opinion. And then Jane hit her finish. Boom. Face first. 1, 2, 3. This, besides the Punk match, was the best 2 minutes on the program. Of course, they weren't done yet. They had to mess with it. They couldn't squeak out with the win, with the Duke in the air. There was an afterbirth. They start getting heat on, or she starts getting heat on poor old Sky Blue, and that's her stomps. Jane's stomps are not. They're the kind of stomps that you would imagine a whooping crane does, where it brings its leg straight up in the air, goes straight down with a bounce, and then Thunder Rosa runs out with a chair to make the save, and as soon as she slides in the ring, and she was moving fast, Thunder Rosa was. She slides in the ring. Excalibur says, "Look, it's the chair that she had used on herself last week by Jane Cargill that Thunder Rosa has brought in." It was a plain black folding chair. Last week, they were in a completely different building. Are we to believe, and is excrement alleging, that Thunder Rosa was so mad about Jane hitting her with that chair that she took the chair, took it back to the hotel with her, took it on the shuttle to the airport and bought a ticket or sent it Delta Dash or whatever and flew it all the way home with her, kept it for a week, and brought it to this fucking building here on the other side of the country.
Maybe she asked Sean Spears to hold it.
But anyway, so the afterbirth looked a little wonky and excrement buried it there, and but the match was perfect. Match was great. And then you don't remember what the main event was, Brian?
I was getting tired. I'm sure as soon as you say it, I'll remember why I don't remember it. What was the main event?
There was Mark Henry's second appearance on the split screen. Now here it was fine. They were already in the show, and whatever they did, they were not going to make this match coming up any more exciting or increase the anticipation level. They could have dipped these guys in nuclear uranium, fucking radioactive goddamn isotopes. They could have set them on fire. They could have launched them into space on a space shuttle. They could have done whatever. They were not going to slow down or speed up the momentum of the show, either one at this point. So they had a split screen with none other than Starks, Hobbs, and Hook, and Starks' opponent, Brian Cage.
I remember now, yes.
You remember now. And they had a match that they announced as no count out, no disqualification, anything goes for the FTW title in a Philly street fight. Ricky Starks versus get my rotten-looking shit in Brian Cage himself. And I wrote, to quote the late, great Percy Pringle, "Oh, sweet Jesus, no." And this is the one I didn't watch. And that was the show. So you went to sleep on it, and I ignored it on purpose.
I was dozing off by that point. I love Ricky Starks. I love Team Taz. Brian Cage really just doesn't do it for me, and I thought they were done with Brian Cage, actually, because I thought they were doing something with Punk.
I don't have any idea, but
hold on, is Punk done with Team Taz?
Well, I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask him, wouldn't you?
Hey, CM.
Maybe he feels like that his win over Powerhouse Hobbs validated his opinion in their disagreement. But I didn't even not watch this because I knew Cage was going to stink, because I like Ricky Starks. I didn't watch this because Philly street fight, no DQ, no count out, furniture, chairs, chains, bottles, rocks, bricks, sticks, pots, pans, tin cans. I do not want to see any more of that. I feel that's what you see at a wrestling show when you go to the concession stand now. The concession stand employees are hitting each other over the head with the chairs and the tongs and the spatulas. It's that common. You go to the bathroom. You're in the bathroom. You're trying to take a piss or maybe take a Russo. And all of a sudden people break out into a brawl with plungers and plumbing implements and goddamn toilet paper. It's a goddamn, what the fuck? It's a novelty now when guys have an entire match hand to hand with no gimmicks, no foreign objects. You know, like Walter and Elia, the guys that had the best 2 matches of the last 2 years. Guys like that. But anyway, no, I didn't watch this football bat phony fucking bullshit on in the main event of that program.
Well, I can't really tell you anything else about it other than to say I know that there were mixed reviews. Some people thought that you have to enjoy this match, and some people thought that if you didn't enjoy this match, you must be nuts.
Well, you've said it completely wrong, because you've just said the same thing. You said if you didn't enjoy this match, you must be nuts. But if you enjoyed it, you said it the other way around. You know what? Go back and listen to the tape, because we're going to leave it in, because I love the way you fucked that up.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll just see exactly how you just did a double negative there. But folks, if you're nuts, if you're not just scratching your nuts, if you want to actually put those nuts in your mouth and suck on them good, baby, because I'll tell you what, they're healthy and nutritious and delicious and salty. Put them in your mouth and suck on them. The folks at nuts.com, they are no longer the best kept secret of savvy snackers across the country.
Yeah.
They're not a secret at all.
Yeah.
Got it. They're not a secret at all, because for heaven's sake, We've told you about them. But Nuts.com has the plethora of high-quality, delicious snacks, the white chocolate toffee cashews that they sent me for my birthday, bourbon pecans, crystallized ginger, honey sesame sticks. They've got candies, dried fruits, and baking mixes and pasta, delicious, healthy nuts, dried fruit, flours, grains, all the raw, organic, roasted, salted, and candied nuts that you can imagine, even chocolate dipped. Put them in your mouth and suck on them. The dried strawberries, we've been sucking a lot here lately. Nuts.com is a family-run business that takes pride in getting you the freshest items. The delivery is so fast, most of your orders ship the same day. They come the next day. Stuff is fresher than the supermarket. It's gluten. They have gluten-free options. They have vegan options. They have all kinds of tasty options. And the best part about it is you will satisfy the whole family. Because, well, Brian, for example, your lovely kids, they love the fruits, and your wife loves your nuts. So you've got the whole family happy there, folks. If you go to nuts.com, that's Nuts, nuts.com.
It sure is.
It sure is. If you go to nuts.com, you'll get free shipping on your first order when you text the word experience to 64,000. That's 64 and 3 zeros. Text the word experience to 64,000, and you will get free shipping on your first order from nuts.com. Terms apply. Available at nuts.com/terms. And we love the nuts around here. We're just constantly, we're carrying our nuts around. We're tasting our nuts. We're feasting on our nuts. We're just checking to make sure our nuts are still there in the Last Manor and the Castle Cornette. The first thing we think about in the morning and the last thing we think about when we go to bed at night is our nuts.
Well, Jim, I certainly want to prevent this show from being nuts any more here. It's been out of control, and I can't even speak English in a proper way. But before I try to rein control of my show, as it were,
yes.
Here, is there anything else you want to say? Is there anything else on your agenda for my show?
Well, speaking of nuts, I got an email. Would you like to talk about some different nuts? Some people that are actually stark, staring, raving nuts?
Okay.
I got an email.
Sounds like it.
We mentioned a couple weeks ago on the program, I said, one of the reasons why that I had no opinion whatsoever of Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley before he went to AEW. Because as you will recall, we've talked about this. During the time that he was competing as Dean Ambrose in the WWE, we either weren't watching the show at all or weren't watching the shows he was on. I had seen almost nothing of him in his previous persona, but when he came to AEW, I know, okay, he's been a big star with that company. They've used him on top. So, okay, so here's a mainstream level guy, right? And since then, everything I have seen of him has made me literally hate the ground that he walks on. From his formulaic thumbtack matches that he can't get his head out of the indies, he's a mud show guy at heart, to his obvious not just embracing, but his love and respect for the bank-addicted drug robber and all of the deathmatch cretins and the garbage wrestlers. And so my opinion has slowly gone from I don't have one to, oh my God, this fucking guy again, right? And I think, and you've kind of been that way too, because all you see is a guy that wants to be an outlaw garbage wrestler working in a fucking mud field somewhere for the juggalos instead of a mainstream professional athlete. So apparently, Tony Khan invests however much money he pays this guy in an ex-WWE superstar, and he gets a garbage wrestler that is now on tour with the garbage promotions, wrestling for garbage wrestling championships. Have I encapsulated that briefly and succinctly enough for the listeners?
I believe so. I guess the only thing I would add is that he's actually, I believe, one of their world champions. I don't know too much about that world.
Yes.
But he's the world champion, even though he's in AEW, he's the world champion in one of these indie promotions you're talking about.
Well, yes, because much like they do in the NFL, when they've got a guy that plays in the National Football League and he moonlights in dog fighting, they don't have a problem with that. They just let him go ahead and fight those dogs in front of the people that are into that kind of thing, and they don't say anything about it, right? There's been precedents in other sports where you could be a professional athlete for a mainstream sports organization and at the same time go out and engage in bestiality in the alleyways of Tijuana or dog fighting in the crack dens of Newark or whatever the case, and it's accepted and your employer doesn't say anything about it, right? Because that's the example that they're setting here. Oh yeah, you can wrestle for me, and you could also go out and do these things with these people in front of these other kind of people that are disgusting and bring shame and dishonor on us and our company and our promotion. Anyway, I got a firsthand report from this thing that they did from Louis in, actually he doesn't say where he's from, but apparently somewhere close by, because apparently the bank addicted drug robber and the CEO of Moxley Plumbing had their garbage wrestling match in Atlantic City. Imagine that. I still have a copy of the Time magazine where they had from the 80s, where they had the cover of a bum on the beach sleeping under an overturned rowboat with the Atlantic City casino's skyline in the background. Anyway, Atlantic City's a shithole. So this guy decided to go and report on the happenings. He says, I discovered that earlier in the day, another outlaw promotion was holding an event at the same venue. Oh, goody, a twofer. I arrived late to the matinee show by about half an hour, which honestly was one of the few bits of good news that day. I knew something was up when on my way I saw dog shit and a dead bird near the entrance. When I went into the casino holding the exhibition, I couldn't help but notice a lack of banners and signs to let people know where to go, but once I found my way in, I did so during a steel cage match between some emo kid with purple hair and a douchebag. They were both in slacks, and one had a long-sleeve button shirt while the other was wearing a wool sweater. At one point, the emo kid was stabbed by a fork and gave himself what you'd call a pap smear. Luckily, the douchebag also got juice and bled for both of them. In the end, the match contained tons of interference, which included a couple of skinheads, a couple of women, and a dumpy fat guy. One of these ladies was in disguise and attacked with a barbed wire stick and even gave the douchebag a side suplex and a lariat, helping the emo kid get the victory after a chair shot. They then made out, and the show was over. Now, there's too many pronouns there. I wonder if it was the emo kid making out with the douchebag, or the woman in disguise with the barbed wire stick making out with the emo kid. What do you think, Brian?
This sounds pretty outrageous. Have you confirmed this is true? This isn't just someone emailing you a story about some wacky show he made up?
It sounds like independent wrestling to me, especially if they're going to be in the same building with the bank-addicted drug robber. Anyway, Louis continues. It ended about an hour before it should have, according to the program. Thankfully, I was oddly compensated by a nearby powerlifting competition held across the hall. Seeing grown men and women lifting heavy objects made up for the early dismissal. After a trip to one of their burger shops and a free game of mini golf in the arcade, I was ready for the real show. We should have a drum roll for times like this. Even before then, it really was all a series of Corny's greatest hits when it came to criticisms about some shows. I looked at the crowd and found myself in a sea of horror movie, MDK, Nick Gage, and Grateful Dead clothing. Some were even wearing studded vests with odd and goofy patches. Studded vests with odd and goofy patches. That was the security. Let's see here. The bell rang. The first match included a ninja from Houston and the return of Leo Rush. High speed, high spots aplenty. One of the other participants took the win, and they had a curtain call afterwards. I assume they all came out and took a bow and thanked people for coming to watch their exciting gymnastics exhibition. The next match has two of your favorites in a tag team, Jelly Nutella and Dwarf Dong Sucker. Now, apparently, the guy that runs the big garbage promotion is friends with Jelly and with the bank addicted drug robber, so they get featured. Jelly Nutella and Dwarf Dong Sucker faced a team that also had an undersized kid, and at least the other guy looked respectable. They gave the dwarf a hot tag, and then he collapsed. Ultimately, the other team won, and Jelly cut a promo talking about Wagyu beef. Third match wasn't important. Had a spot where both men flew out of the ring onto particle boards, and an afterbirth with one of the wrestlers turned into a pincushion. Matt Cardona put his career on the line against a dude in fishnets whose face looked a little like David Arquette's. Apparently, the man is gay, and some of his moveset demonstrated this as he replaced the 10 punches in the corner with 10 pelvic thrusts.
Let's just say that's not necessarily a gay or a straight thing. That just sounds like a
it sounds like
inappropriate thing.
When you're shoving your dick, thrusting it toward a man's face, it doesn't sound heterosexual. It sounds like garbage wrestling.
Yeah, I'm going to say there's plenty of gay people who don't do that. So that's why I say it's not gay or straight. It's stupid.
It's only if you're a gay garbage wrestler. You narrow it down to that demographic. Then it's okay to just walk around randomly down the street shoving your pelvis in other people's faces. Chelsea Green made an assist for Matt as she was hidden in the crowd looking like a member of Daft Punk. Matt unfortunately saved his career and won a title, as I forgot to mention that the match was for the Internet Championship. Then they had intermission. Following contest was essentially a scrambled eggs match with 6 random-looking men and the best worker among them, Thunder Rosa. A lot of obvious cooperation, and did I mention Thunder Rosa was the best of the bunch? In the end, the victory was secured by a pasty white dumpling in a black singlet after an airplane spin transitioned into a sloppy pile driver. He goes through a trios match. Then Mance Warner. Remember, I liked him in MLW till he had a match with the Invisible Man. He grabbed a microphone and said him and his partner, a guy named Justice, are the best tag team in the company and nobody can beat them. And them boys showed up. Mark and Jay Briscoe showed up in the garbage wrestling promotion because obviously Ring of Honor now has lost their ever-loving fucking mind and has no standards. At least unless they've changed the contracts, Ring of Honor for their contracted talent used to have right of refusal on independent dates, and we would do everything we could to help guys get extra work so they could make extra payoffs, but we would have never approved of any of our contracted talent seen on the Ring of Honor television program basically doing the equivalent of fucking walking down the street fucking chickens, which is what they do. So I hate that the Briscoes have resorted to this. But anyway, but they didn't escape the curse because after they asked and answered a challenge, Jay climbs the turnbuckles and starts pandering to the crowd and takes a tumble. Luckily, he grabs the ropes and braces himself on the apron to stabilize him on the way down. They had a fight between a featherweight and a cruiserweight. And then Mick Foley was there because this is what we've been waiting for, the big main event. And we mentioned Mick Foley is the nicest man, too nice to be in the wrestling business. He dignifies all of these cretins, regardless of their cretinness. And he gave a promo where he mentioned that one man's garbage is another man's art. And he would be the guest commentator for the main event, which was between the bank-addicted drug robber and the CEO of Moxley Plumbing. Hundreds of light tubes and dozens of panes of glass were being brought to the ring. The grand shit show lay before us, a dumpster fire unlike any we have seen before in a while. Gage comes out first. He's the challenger, accompanied by a man who is desperately trying to channel his inner Paul Bearer. They're glommed by the mob of insanely rabid fans. I think he means that, actually, literally. All these fans have rabies. Can you imagine anybody that would like or want to touch this walking disease, the bank-addicted drug robber? They're all hugging him and slobbering all over him, spreading whatever things they have that are catching. He takes his time parading, posing, and profanely gesturing to his disturbingly adoring crowd. Mox comes out next and is also cheered for and liked by the crowd, albeit not to the same level as the bank-addicted drug robber. Gage gets a long and drawn-out intro hailing his representation of his gang, his cell block, his faction, and peoples he lost. Mox gets his introduction as champion and then is rudely met with light tubes to the face. He returns the favor and shits on. They used the light tubes. They used the glass. They used the barbed wire. They used steel chairs. They used a pizza cutter. And they used maybe a half dozen wrestling moves. It was a gruesome bloodbath. Now, bear in mind, this guy's making a fortune from Tony Khan. He doesn't have to do this. He does this because he wants to. He does this because he thinks that this is something he should be proud of. He does this to apparently spread his sphincter and take a giant shit on the real professionals in the wrestling business that for 125 years would never have associated with this. Guess what the finish was? Brian, can you guess?
I have no idea.
The bloodbath ended when Moxley hit his paradigm shift off the middle rope, driving Gage into panes of glass head first. At least that's how it should have been. But the paradigm shift got turned into a butterfly suplex, and the panes were not broken by Gage, but rather Moxley's legs, or they were the only thing that caught the glass. The finish was such a cock-up that it even left me stunned. Afterwards, Moxley jogged about the venue in a delirium, gasping for breath and mumbling, all while covered in blood, sweat, and glass. Gage gave a speech about how he won't quit till either his body falls apart or he gets, quote, a bullet in the head. And Louis parenthesized, someone call Armed Anderson. There you have it. That's what they do at these things that they try to call wrestling. I just wanted to bring that up. A millionaire is paying this guy to be a representative of his major league national television promotion, and this guy is at cheap casinos in Atlantic City rolling around in broken glass and bleeding with a bank-addicted drug robber while 400 or 500 fucking bloodthirsty cretins with no job, no life, and apparently plenty of virginity cheer them on. I'm sure Lou Thez would have, if he was around today, would bend over backwards to be their spokesperson.
There's not a single thing around today that Lou Thez would want to be the spokesman for.
Well, that's true.
So maybe he's not the barometer. It has to be someone who's a little giving, not someone who's like, it has to be exactly my way, or that's it. Carl Gotch wouldn't embrace any of this either.
The Sheik, the wild man from Syria, the United States heavyweight champion, would look at these fucking idiots and go, what a bunch of fucking marks. Anyway, it's your show.
Let's get some questions here on the show. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Paul. I was watching a YouTube video where there was a retrospective review of SummerSlam 1999. After the women's title match between Ivory and Tori, Ivory was going to deliver a post-match beatdown. Luna Vachon runs in to make the save and chases Ivory away from the ring. The YouTube video made reference that this was the first time Luna had been seen on WWF programming since serving a 6-month suspension for being in a backstage fight with Sable. Do you have any insight into this fight between Sable and Luna for the listeners? And do you know who won? And then he says, also, Brian's wrong about pizza. Well, that's the end of his question there. Luna and Sable backstage. What are your memories?
Okay, very few, because I hadn't, until this was just brought up, I remember there wasn't a fight. I remember that because, let's face it, good Lord have mercy, there was almost a fight. People had to talk Luna into not ripping Sable limb from limb. I think, was that at one point, did she tell me she was going to just grab her and throw her in one of those big equipment cases and shut the fucking lid? I can't remember what started it now. Was that, Jesus Christ, was that the time? There was one time that Luna was miffed, pissed off at Sable because they were fighting over the women's championship, whatever they called it back then. That's before they were even divas. Maybe it was just the women's title. I don't know. And so the finish was going to be that I think Luna somehow would clock Sable with the belt and do something, pin, I don't know. Well, Sable was scared to get hit with the belt. And Luna came back because I think I may have been the one that delivered the fucking finish or the news to her or whatever. Or she just came to me like, what do I do? She don't want me to hit her with the belt. I said, did you show her how you were going to hit her with the belt and how you did? Yeah, so finally they compromised. And instead of whacking her over the back of the head with the belt in a working way, they made Luna kind of take the belt and shove it into Sable's back. And she took like some kind of horrible crumple. And Luna was pissed off about that because it looked like shit. And, I can't remember what precipitated that particular incident that they're talking about, but there wasn't any big fight like they got into and they were wailing on each other like Butch Reed and the Barbarian. Or Barbarian John Nord, that is, not the Barbarian. But it was, Luna was, and made no secret that she was going to beat the shit out of her because I think she just lost her patience with the whole thing. That was the problem. They tried to make Sable a wrestler while Sable couldn't wrestle, didn't want to learn how to wrestle, but because, as we know, Shitstain was so enamored of her and thought that anybody could do this. And then all she would do is she didn't want to get beat, but she didn't want to get hurt. She didn't want to do anything that looked any good. And she was just trying to move on to major motion pictures and sitcoms. So there was a couple points Sonny was going to fucking get into it with her. But her and Sonny, I mean, Sable probably wouldn't have fought at all. She would have screamed for some help. But her and Sonny might have been interesting for a little while. But her and Luna wouldn't have lasted long. And Sable had the chance that I would have against goddamn, Andre Arlovsky and Brock Lesnar in a handicap match.
All right. Well, let's get another question here. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from one of the legends out there, John Fell in Baltimore.
Going back to the OG.
That's right. And he also mentions it's Lee Petrie's birthday. So happy birthday, Lee Petrie. 50 years old.
50?
50.
Good Lord. I thought he was a lot older than that. He's led a hard life.
Well, let's see how hard this question is, Jim. This was sent by, once again, John Fell in Baltimore. I was wondering what would have happened to the careers of Jim, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, and Ricky Gibson had Ricky Gibson not gotten hurt in the car accident. Would Jerry Jarrett have chosen a different partner for Morton and still formed the Rock and Roll Express? Who could that partner have been? Would Watts have taken the Gibson brothers along with you, Bobby, and Dennis? Would you have had the same success against the Gibsons? What do you think?
Lots of what's there. Now, there's only one thing. Ricky Gibson, the car accident that he had is what put him out of wrestling, but his career as an active wrestler did not end until after the Rock and Roll Express was formed.
Right, because he was actually in Mid-South in 85 after you guys had already left.
Right, and he was in Crockett in 86. Remember Ricky Lee Jones? Poor thing, we'll get to that
that's right. I forgot about that, yeah.
And as well, Ricky Gibson also wrestled in the early 80s in, I think was it Southeastern or Continental, which had the Alabama territory. They did split up and go their separate ways on occasion. They'd be booked in different, because Robert Gibson spent a lot of time in 1978 in the Tennessee territory, teaming, working for Nick Goulas, teaming with other people, while Ricky was somewhere else. Ricky may have been a single in Knoxville at that point. So anyway, let's start back at the beginning. Ricky Gibson was Robert Gibson's older brother. They were half brothers, actually. But Ricky got into business first. I think he started in 1972 when he was like 19 years old, maybe 18. He was phenomenal. By the time that they used him first in Tennessee in the main events in Memphis in 74, he was only in his early 20s, and he was the best in-ring young babyface worker, I think, anywhere in the business. Now, with hindsight, back then we couldn't see everywhere. But now in hindsight that I've seen film or most people that were around live at that point in time, Ricky Gibson as a white meat, young babyface was the best in the business. He was so athletic. He was the first guy to do the missile drop kick before they named it that off the top rope. You know, when he was chasing the managers, he'd do the spots where he would run across the ring and jump over the top rope and land on his feet and keep at a dead run. It's just amazing athleticism. The big high backdrops where you've never seen a guy go up that high or turn so violently in the air and land so flat like a board that it looked like it was going to break the ring. The way he sold. So he was really a really exciting young babyface, and they brought him into Memphis at the perfect time. Lawler, Jarrett had just decided that he was going to give Lawler the big singles push, and Lawler had just turned on Jackie Fargo and hospitalized Fargo in Memphis, and they brought Ricky Gibson in to be Lawler's challenger for the Southern Junior Heavyweight title, which later became the Southern Heavyweight title. Well, business was so hot because Lawler and Fargo's first go-round had been drawing, and then Fargo gets hurt and put out. Ricky Gibson comes in to challenge Lawler. Then they used that program as the catalyst when Fargo was ready to come back. Fargo was then in Ricky Gibson's corner, or then refereed first, I think. Point is, Ricky Gibson in his early 20s, because he was plugged into that angle, got credit for like 5 full sellouts of the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum that year with him in a main event, which was 11,000 people. And it was, you know, fucking great for a guy in that position. And that made him in the Tennessee territory from then on. So then in 1976, they bring him back. He's in a tag team with his younger brother, Robert, who had just turned 18 at August of 75. So really, he was still 18 years old, just about to turn 19. And I got to be honest, when we first saw that team, you could tell, okay, this is Ricky Gibson, the big star, and this is his younger brother that is greener than a pepper tree, right? And that run didn't go too well, although the fans liked him because it was the Gibsons. But Robert, you know, he was green. But by the time that they worked a little while longer there, then they went up to Nova Scotia, worked the summer deal in the Maritimes for Al Zink, and they got a little bit more experience. And then Robert spent some time in the Tennessee territory, as I said, by himself while Ricky was doing other shit. By the time they put them back together as a team in 1979, now Robert has come along, and now I would say they were in Tennessee during the period of time Lawler was out with a broken leg, and then some part of time when he came back. But I would say the 1979 through 1981 era Ricky and Robert Gibson team was the most exciting young babyface team in the business.
You know, although brief, because of various reasons, including, you know, money, they weren't in L.A. long. But Dan Farron, the late Dan Farron, told me that he saw them out there and they were spectacular, the Gibson brothers.
Yeah, especially for that time period in Los Angeles, they would have been, my God, you know, Stevens and Patterson next to the competition, and they were really good. Even in Tennessee, we'd seen all kinds of tag teams, the baby faces, heels, everything. But the Gibsons were good, and the people got into them. And that period of time, they were an excellent tag team in the matches with Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham, the Blonde Bombers. And, you know, those, especially remember they did the second version of the Tupelo concession stand brawl in between the original and the one with Gilbert Morton and Fucci and Onita. And I don't honestly remember. Now, it's not to say the car wreck ended Ricky's career, but the point is he had other injuries before that, because that style that he worked had taken its toll. He had had knee problems. He had a back. I can't believe he could walk, much less not have back problems, with the backdrops that he took in those Tennessee rings too. And there was periods where he wasn't wrestling and Robert was out on his own with someone else. And
how old was he in 94? Because when I saw him, he must have been older than younger than I thought. He had a cane. He had gray hair.
Yeah. That's another thing. Ricky Gibson, I'm going to say, well, hold on. I can almost do the math. I'm 52. When you saw him at the Night of Legends, Ricky Gibson was like 41 years old.
Wow.
He was he turned prematurely gray. He had the injuries that, as a matter of fact, you'll see in 1986 with the Crockett tapes, Ricky Lee Jones, his midsection was big because he had gained weight. He wasn't a greyhound anymore. He'd only been working at that time for less than 15 years. But whereas in the mid 70s, he was sleek and a greyhound and these leaps and all this athletic activity. He was always a great worker, but by the 80s, that's what he was getting by on, was working, because he had had a bunch of injuries and the gray hair and just everything combined to make him look older than his age. And then the car wreck happened. And the reason he was walking with a cane, he was at Night of Legends. He was in the Rock and Roll Express's corner, handcuffed to Tammy Fitch. His leg was bent by that wreck around. Not only did he have a hole in his leg, right, I think it was right below the knee. He had a hole that went almost halfway through his fucking leg, but also the leg was not straight anymore. It wouldn't straighten out, nor would his foot point straight toward the front. So he looked old. But that was the thing. It was just, he worked a really hard style, but it took its toll on him. But when he was right, he was brilliant. And the only weak point in his game, won't surprise you, being a Gibson brother, he wasn't a strong promo. If he was really mad, he could fire up for a brief period of time and the people would roar and you'd believe it. But he had a hoarse voice anyway, and he wasn't a real well-spoken promo when he didn't have something to be mad about. But they back then in the baby faces, you didn't really need to be, as long as the heel was, and you could just be put upon and register indignation. But yeah, that's so. To answer John's question, now that I've gone through all of that, it wouldn't have been a matter of taking the Gibson brothers to Louisiana, because Ricky Morton had just come back to Tennessee from San Antonio. He'd been teaming with Ken Lucas.
Yeah.
In the Southwest Territory, and he had just come back because, Memphis was the home territory for him. Robert, I'm trying to think, he had been there for a little while at that point, but was a single, possibly. He hadn't been just teaming with Ricky Gibson anywhere. And as we've told the story, they needed a team to be the B team, teeny bopper, rock and roll kind of team underneath the Fabulous Ones, because the territory was doing such business. And also because Lawler was the booker and he couldn't say no to anybody, just starve you out and then say, oh shit, I'm sorry, you can't stay. They had so many guys in the territory, they were running 2 towns every night. So they put Ricky and Robert together to go to the spot shows as the Rock and Roll Express to draw the girls that wanted to see the Fabs, because the Fabs couldn't be in 2 places at the same time. They could just be in the parking lot in the back of Stan's van minutes before they were in the ring in whatever building they were in.
One of the things that always surprised me about the early days of the rock and roll was the success in Houston. I mean, they had success everywhere across the territory, but in that one specific town, Ricky Morton had just been there with Ken Lucas. And he even main evented against Bockwinkel for the AWA title, in 83, right? Or was it 82 or 83? I don't remember.
Within a calendar year of them showing up as the Rock and Roll Express, probably.
So that's what always surprised me, was that they got over so strong in Houston, even though he wasn't fresh.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Maybe the 3,000 people that were going to the Sam Houston Coliseum for the Friday night matches during part of that San Antonio talent run were sitting there going, that Ricky, he sure has improved, but the 7,000 other people that weren't coming at all during that run that were there now were drowning them out, going, yeah, the Rock and Roll Express. It was a different, the business blew up, and it was a different audience. And yes, some people, but it wasn't like Ricky Morton was a different human being. He was Ricky Morton. He'd been used in that period of time as a top tag team with Ken Lucas.
And then he got MTV.
And then they all got MTV. But, Morton and Lucas were not, Ken Lucas, Ricky credited for teaching him a lot about working and about the business. Ken Lucas was a veteran, but they were not as cosmetically pleasing nor as exciting as the Rock and Roll Express. That was just a perfect combination. But like you said, Ricky had matches with Bockwinkel for the AWA title when they recognized that down there. It's not like he'd been used in the first match and then he comes in the Rock and Roll Express and their main event guys. It's just he had a new partner, had a little bit more hair and MTV, and and he's dressing like David Lee Roth, and they said, yes, please, may we have some more. And that in Houston especially, that was, I would say, Houston, Oklahoma City, and goddamn, they loved those guys in Little Rock, Arkansas too. But in Houston, they actually held candlelight vigils all summer for the Rock and Roll Express to come back. We beat them for the Mid-South Tag Team title in a match where the losing team had to leave Mid-South for 90 days, right? Because the deal that Watts had made with Jarrett was all those guys came down there. Well, the Rock and Roll gets over so good, Jarrett needs somebody for the summer, some babyface team. So Dundee agrees to send the Rock and Roll back to Memphis for 3 months in the summer, because the summer's the best time in the Tennessee territory. And Watts agreed to that because he got 2 runs of the Rock and Roll Midnight. We ran a couple-month program, and we beat them and ran them off. And then we beat all the other teams they put in front of us until the Rock and Roll's 90 days was up and they could come back. Then we ran for 3 more months. They beat us and we left. But in Houston, the girls would come with signs they had made and banners and pennants. They even took pictures of this, and I think they even put it on one of the Mid-South TV shows. They would line with tape the hallway wall that led to the babyface locker room door with signs, come back Rock and Roll, and they'd have the number of days, like they did for Goldberg's fucking win streak. They would have the number of days, either 44 down, 46 to go, or however they phrased it, and nothing but banners and pennants, and they would leave the what's the word I'm searching for? The bandanas that the Rock and Roll tied on them. They'd leave bandanas out in front of the door like it was a goddamn vigil for the death of John Lennon. And finally, the first night they were back in Houston, all the girls brought all the display and set it up again, and they had the Rock and Roll come out and take the picture with all the fans in front of the display and everything. Long time gone, the Rock and Roll Express are back. And I mean, what kind of the fans are doing their own promotion. They love those guys so much. No other wrestlers on the card or anywhere else were getting that kind of fucking treatment from those people.
In 84, how horrified were you when you saw that they had grown mustaches?
That was a dark day, a very dark day. 'Cause it made them look older and less babyface, but they got rid of them fairly quick. But it was on MTV. I thought didn't David Lee Roth grow a mustache at one point?
Oh, I don't remember that.
Possibly somebody on MTV grew a mustache. So that's what happened there. But so the point is, to John's question, they wouldn't have brought the Gibson brothers to Mid-South, although they wouldn't have gotten over as good as the Rock and Roll Express if they did. But if they had brought Ricky and Robert Gibson from 1979, 1980, 1981 into Mid-South wrestling at almost any time period, they would have been possibly the most popular team, babyface team, except for the Rock and Roll Express. They were just so good.
if Ricky and Robert Gibson were still teaming up and Lawler wanted to form another team for those towns that you didn't get the fabulous ones, and he has Ricky Morton, is there anyone else you could see on the 83 Memphis roster that would have fit in?
Oh, God. I don't have the 83 Memphis
Bobby's
babyface roster in front of me.
You're lucky it didn't happen to Bobby Eaton because he turned babyface in 83. It very easily could have been him.
Well, that's the thing. But Ricky Morton, I mean, at that time, thankfully, I think Bobby Fulton was somewhere else at that point because poor Bobby Fulton may have been, and then that would have screwed the Fantastics too. Can you imagine Ricky Morton and Bobby Fulton, and then Robert Gibson and Tommy Rogers? None of that would have worked. See, that's the point. You've got to have the right combination. You've got to have the right recipe of food ingredients or the right formula of chemical composition. Sometimes the cake doesn't rise if you don't put all the ingredients in right. And you see, I mean, it was happenstance, but it all worked out when you think about it. And honestly, it was best that I didn't get the fabulous. I was supposed to be the Fabulous One's manager when they first got put together as a team. Jarrett was going to switch them heel, and that's why he made me a manager. But then he didn't because they got over like God as baby faces. But that would have forever probably banned the Midnight Express from ever becoming a thing with me, at least, possibly ever. Because I wasn't ready for that spot at that time. And then later on, I got Stan when I wanted Tom Pritchard. But it might have turned out best that I got Stan when I got Stan, and then later on I got Tom when I got Tom when I needed Tom. And it didn't prevent the Fantastics from being a tag team.
Talking about this period of time, we're talking about all these different what ifs. I have to think, what if you had gotten more sleep?
Well, I guarantee you that's one thing that we did not get in Mid-South Wrestling was a lot of sleep. However, I'm glad looking back on it that I did not have the Helix Sleep mattress back then, because if I hadn't been able to sleep on my Helix Sleep mattress every night, I would have been really cranky. And maybe we would have got one and put it in the trunk of a car like the mighty Igor did. Nevertheless, folks, if you want to have a great night's sleep, that's all you need is a Helix mattress. You don't need drugs. Don't need sleep aids. You don't need to watch modern wrestling and bore yourself to death. You just need a fine quality surface to lay your tired old bones and your sleepy little head down on. And that's what the folks at Helix Mattress will give you. We've talked about them. You just go on to the website, helixsleep.com. That's HELIX, helixsleep.com. And you take the quiz. It takes about 2 minutes to complete. And it matches your body type and sleep preference to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? Why would you buy a mattress that someone else has used? You don't know what kind of DNA they've dribbled all over it. Possibly they're incontinent or they have premature ejaculation issues. Always get a brand new mattress and a mattress made just for you. Everybody's unique. That's why they've got different models to choose from. Soft, medium, and firm. Cool down mattresses. They've even got a mattress great for spinal alignment. I already got my Helix Sleep before I knew about this, but the next one I get, the one for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains. Anyway, you take the quiz. It takes 2 minutes. They match you up with something that you will like, and it's shipped directly to your door for free. You don't have to go to a store. You don't have to have 6 or 8 shady-looking individuals coming into your home, tracking dirt and who knows what all over the place, just to get the thing in there and get it lugged up the stairs. You just bring it up in the box, open it up, and watch it inflate to life. They've got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights, risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it. They've got financing options, flexible payment plans. You've never seen people this flexible. They'll bend over backwards for you, stick their own head up their ass, and kiss it goodbye. And right now, Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/JCE. That's right. Go to helixsleep.com/JCE and you can get up to $200 off and or 2 free pillows, depending on what you're doing there. So do that right now. This isn't any of that My Pillow horse shit where they just put some pencil shavings in a sheet and call it a pillow or a mattress. This is the quality stuff, folks. HelixSleep.com/JCE.
Well, Jim, we certainly don't want to sleep on any more of these questions, so let's get the next one here on the show. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Kyle in Columbus, Ohio. I was watching the 1992 Royal Rumble and thinking about how Vince McMahon loves guys that can turn heads at an airport. What about the Warlord? He never really became a star. Why? Seems to me like he was the kind of guy that Vince loved.
Oh, well, he was the kind of guy that everybody loved, actually, because he's such a nice guy. His name's Terry Sipinski. And he showed up out of nowhere for me in 1986 for Crockett. I'm trying to remember. He was a Minneapolis guy. Imagine that. A big bodybuilder from Minneapolis or from the Midwest originally. I think maybe he got in or got trained with, some of those other guys, but when he was in the NWA for Crockett in 1986, he was 21 years old and weighed 310 pounds, and almost none of it was fat. I mean, he was hard as a rock. When he would grab you to do something and you would touch him, just every place you touched felt like this counter that I'm leaning on, right? And they put him with baby dolls. So a couple of times, Big Bubba Rogers and the Warlord had a confrontation. And I mean, I'm sure Terry will admit at this point, he was greener than a pepper tree. But he was so strong. One time I rolled out of the ring to avoid baby doll doing something, and I stand up and, oh, there's the Warlord. And he just reached out with his hands under my arms. And I was 210 pounds probably at that point. And just picked me up and set me back up on the apron of the ring, just like a little small child. By 92, he was old. He was in his late 20s. He had been around the business a little bit more. He understood more how to work and got the picture of being a big, giant, like his team with Barbarian or, whatever. But he wasn't, he was never a smooth or necessarily exciting, speedster performer in the ring. He was a big power guy. And Vince loved guys like that, as a lot of promoters did. But I don't know that I ever saw the Warlord as being a potential for singles stardom, because by his size, he was somewhat limited in just how he could move and what he could do, but he learned to make it work for him. And I saw him actually on one of those big time wrestling shows. I think it was in Raleigh and Spartanburg. But he and Barbarian were working as a team. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And I mean, they were older, but they could probably do more of their shit that they did from 25 years beforehand than, guys like the Rock and Roll Express could, because they weren't doing Hava Coronas and missile drop kicks to begin with. But that was, a very nice guy. And once he got the hang of things, easy to work with despite his freakish strength, but not necessarily a singles champion run in his future or past as it is now.
You can't think of any classic Warlord matches. Wasn't really a promo, always had a manager. Physically, he may have been the biggest guy ever because of how shredded he was or how big and jacked he was for that size.
Oh, and here's another thing. He was 21 years old. He was 310 pounds and not a lick of body fat. But the story he was telling was he graduated high school 3 years beforehand at 185 pounds. So that was a pretty substantial weight gain in a short period of time. And it, probably a record for something like that. But
and if you notice, he kind of went away when the steroid problem started happening to the WWF.
Yeah, he might have been somewhat of what do they call him, a red flag that maybe he's
neon
on a few
sign.
Supplements. Neon sign might be, but I liked him. I never had a single problem with him at all. He's a very nice guy. But if you were trying to tell the federal government that none of your talent was on steroids, he probably wasn't the person to put in the front of the line.
And of course, if you ever wanted to use an example of, for the people who argue that Dusty Rhodes was shot in 1988, I think one of the things you could point to is Road Warriors Powers of Pain scaffold matches, which of course was why they jumped. I know, of course they did. Wouldn't you? If you were that size, I obviously.
Well, yeah, I said, wouldn't you? I didn't. No, but no, that's the thing is, because we all looked at that when we first saw it and said, what the fuck? And they went through with talking about it, but they weren't going to go through with doing it. And what was that old commercial? Does the time for talking about it is over with? It's time to do it, baby. Get it done, whatever. Well, they didn't want to get it done because it's one thing. We had got the scaffold match over where it was, because that was before they had just done it to death. It was basically the Midnight and Road Warriors and then the Midnight and Rock and Roll or Midnight and Fantastics. That's the only scaffold matches they've had, or they had at that point. And, you know, Dusty saw, well, the people are going to think what's going to happen when these two giant teams face off on a scaffold. Well, that two giant teams were wondering also, and the Road Warriors knew they weren't taking the bump. So that left the Barbarian and Warlord, and at 300 pounds apiece, neither one of them felt like dropping 20 feet, whether in a controlled manner or not, to the ground. So they instead decided to go to the WWF. So that was kind of a self-fulfilling, hey, want to get rid of Warlord and Barbarian, Dusty? No, baby, I'm going to book them in a scaffold. Well, you just got rid of them anyway.
So where was the line on the card of who had contracts and who didn't with Crockett?
Oh, God.
Because if they were able to just jump there, that means they didn't have a contract.
Yeah, see, Crockett gave out the first contracts that Crockett gave out, as I recall, and this is off the top of my head. I have copies in my drawer, but I can't reach it, and I'm not going to hold the program up just for this, but they were late 1985. And those contracts basically were booking contracts that they guaranteed they would pay you commensurate with what, you know, the normal prevailing practice was in the professional wrestling community. I believe that was the verbiage, which meant anything they wanted, but you were tied to them to be your booker because they had the national TV, the TBS, and they wanted to make sure they had their key talent tied up. And then, you know, we're like, okay, nobody's ever asked us to sign a contract, but it's not like we don't want to be here. We want to be on national TV. So we're going to sign this. And I think that was for a year or two. But then we started hearing that since the contracts don't guarantee any money, chances are they probably wouldn't hold up in court. And it may have been just for a year at that point because they were dipping their toe in the water. And that's when we had, I can speak for me and the Midnight Express, when we early in spring of 86, when we had that little jaunt up to Connecticut to meet with Vince McMahon the first time and tried to keep it a secret. But Tully's friend that worked at U.S. Air saw us getting on the plane to New York on our off day. So there you go. So immediately upon us getting back, like within the next week, Crockett had presented us with other contracts that guaranteed us money. And that was a 3-year deal, and it guaranteed us $100,000 for the first year, $125,000 for the second year, $150,000 for the third year. And we were already at that point in 1986. My God, we'd already started the run with the Rock and Roll Express. We'd had a couple of $4,000 and $5,000 weeks that March. So we had already made better than half the $100,000, you know, way before middle of the year. So anyway, but that was a guarantee. You won't make less than this. You can make more. See, that's the thing. Those were the minimum guarantees. So anyway, as we've talked about before, we decided not to go to New York and upset the apple cart and leave the Rock and Roll Express and probably have to move from Charlotte and et cetera. The whole thing was the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette were better off in the NWA than the WWF. But that was the second round of contracts. And the question you asked was who was on them. I'm going to say in 1986, it was the Horsemen, Flair, Tully, Arn, maybe or maybe not Ole, because I think Ole was just always, at that point in his life, he was always just doing a favor by being there to begin with. He wasn't going to sign anything that he couldn't leave and go home anytime he wanted to. Luger was the first big guaranteed contract. The big one. He got $350,000, which led to no end of consternation from everybody else that this green guy from Florida that's coming up to do on-the-job training got through. That's where Lex got his first heat with the boys. Definitely Dusty, definitely Magnum, definitely the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, and myself. I'm trying to think, in 1986, the first round of contracts, I don't know if anybody else would have necessarily been included.
So like Jimmy Valiant, contract or no contract? If you had to guess.
Interesting. I don't know. Of course, Jimmy was gone by 88 anyway. So by the time that the question you were asking was pertaining to Warlord and Barbarian, I don't think they put them on contract, even though that they were using them on top. If they did, maybe it had expired at that point or whatever. But not everybody that worked on the shows was on contract, just the guys that they thought they needed to build the company around. So in some cases, and that's Rude and Manny. Manny had always been around because he was one of Dusty's pets and favorite guys. And Rude was at that time, they'd brought him up from Florida, and that was his first real main event level push in a big territory. So they may not have thought it was worth it. And they put the World Tag Team titles on him. And then they're both gone. And I guess they didn't realize that, Rude would go to the WWF, whereas Manny was just gone. Where did he go? Did he just go home?
I remember him working some AWA shots, but I think that was after this. I think he just went home.
That may have been it.
That is weird. I mean, everyone else went somewhere. Manny Fernandez just left.
Went home. I thought he was a tremendous talent as a worker, but gee, remember the time he did a shoot interview here several years ago, and he told everybody that the Mexican death match between he and Abdullah the Butcher was supposed to be the main event at Starrcade 85, but when Dusty saw the house, he put him and Flair on last. Good God. That's why the programs that were printed a month in advance had the Mexican death match on 4th.
Well, Jim, our next question sent on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru from Grant Cameron. With news about fuel shortages currently in England, did Jim Cornette ever ask any of the boys about how they dealt with the fuel crisis in the 1970s?
Did I ask him? No, I was watching them because we were dealing with it too. See, that's the early, I guess the 70s early fuel crisis was what, 1974-ish. But I remember my mom even talking, that was before I even had to buy any gas. I remember my mom talking about it because, oh, geez, it became a thing. Or are we going to go see Aunt Lola up in Covington this weekend? Well, the gas, But the guys in, that's when the guys in Tennessee, especially because they drove everywhere. I mean, it put a crimp in all the touring industries, sports teams that toured, entertainment that toured, concerts, whatever. Remember roller derby, the energy crisis in 74, 75 is one of the things that led to the downfall and extermination of roller derby. But you had to get there. So that's where the guys not only started, really carpooling sounds wimpy for the guys, but sharing rides, riding with each other, getting the diesel powered cars. Rick McGraw had a diesel fucking Datsun that got like 747 miles to the gallon or something when he was in the territory in 82 or something like that. You couldn't get, he was short, but he was wide as a fucking drive-in movie screen. You couldn't get him and another wrestler and a half in his car, but he didn't have to get gas but once every 3 months or something. And then the CB radios and the Fuzzbusters, they all came into it also because with the CBs, because when they decreased the speed limit federally. Do people remember that at one point the national speed limit on the interstate was dropped down to 55 miles an hour everywhere? Has that been so long ago people have forgotten that?
It's such a dark moment in society. I think people have looked past it. What a horrible moment that was.
Well, but the thing was, because of the gas shortage and the gas prices, they decided, well, if we lower the speed limit and people aren't doing 70, 75 miles an hour, it'll save gas. Well, then what that did was make it a constant game of cat and mouse between anybody who drove anywhere and the cops. Because especially out west, or especially down south, when you're in South Georgia on the fucking 75 and you're doing 55 miles an hour, it's like you're watching stray dogs pass you, right? There's no towns, there's no nothing. And these wrestlers had to get to the shows, right? So they got the fuzzbusters, the radar detectors, and the CB radios. And then just like the truck drivers, it became a game. Spot the cops, stooge where the cops are. And we started to learn, this was when I was still, driving to be a photographer to the matches. And then later on, when I got into business, you started learning the signs. Like if somebody saw a cop sitting at a speed trap, they'd come on down the interstate the other way, flashing their lights. If you saw somebody doing that, you knew something was going on ahead. You get on the CB or whatever the fuck. And that lasted for a long time until they finally reinstated in most places the speed limit. Can you imagine wrestlers late to a town doing 55 miles an hour on I-40 in between fucking Jackson, Tennessee and somewhere, right? It's insane. So that was the way they handled it, was by grumbling, piling up in the car and trying to get around and subvert the federal mandates made to get them to slow down and save gas. And
were there any friendly gas stations that would hook up the wrestlers knowing that they needed gas to get to their next town?
Well, no, there were guys that actually had cans of gas in their trunk, but you knew you had to make sure that you either knew a place you could stop for sure, or you had enough to get where you were going or whatever. And that was sometimes tricky, but the guys ran up and down the same roads, the same weeks. So yeah, there were always, by the time I got into business, the friendly gas stations that were pointed out amongst the boys were more where the girl working the cash register has a thing for the boys and a lot of free time on her hands in Cave City on the way up to Louisville on Tuesdays. But nevertheless,
that was a lot of specific detail there.
Specific information, and I don't know where that came out of or back into or whatever.
Oh, God.
But also, and then back then you got paid trans. I guess the guys don't do that now either. Maybe, I don't know, they have some method of doing it, but you know what trans is?
I know what it is, and I don't know if they do it the way they used to, like where they pay pennies per mile or anything.
Yeah, if you rode with somebody else in their car, whoever was driving their car, you paid them 5 cents. It was 5 cents a mile when I got into business. I think at one point it was a penny a mile, then it was 3 cents, whatever. But when I got into business in 82, it was 5 cents a mile. And that way, a lot of guys with a good car wanted to drive, because if they got 3 guys to go with them, they'd make a profit on carrying those guys to the show and back. They would pay for the gas and then some. And then I did that with any time I rode with anybody else, or anybody that rode with me did that up until the time that me and the Midnight started. And then we just, we did it for a while, and then we said, fuck, let's just start rotating, because we're always together. So we just started doing it that way.
All right. Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Rob in the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. I just finished watching Steamboat vs. Flair from Clash of the Champions 6 in 1989, and I noticed Steamboat clapping his hands before moves. Why is that? Is it a cue to move to the next part of the match? And if so, are there any other less recognizable cues like this?
No, it's not. It's not a cue. It's what do they call them? A tick?
Yeah.
When you have a habitual thing that you do, it's hard to explain verbally. But some guys, like you can see in your mind's eye Steamboat rolling up for an arm drag and clapping his hands before he catches the guy and does another one. I don't even know how to explain it otherwise than there's certain movements that guys do, certain things that they just adopt the mannerism of subconsciously. It helps with their own rhythm or showing that they're getting ready or whatever. I mean, you can see guys signaling other guys to, Flair was sometimes kind of bad about it when he'd be begging back in the corner. His left hand would be up like stop, and his fucking head would be shaking no, but his right hand down at his midsection would be like, come on. And that's how the guy knew, he's making all the motions up here, but down there he's going, come on, come in, close in, keep going. And, but the clap help me think of some other guys with other things that they do.
Well, there's always, beyond the clap when the guys are about to lock up.
Abdullah the Butcher, when he would go for the fucking elbow drop, he wouldn't just drop the elbow. He'd raise the elbow up and he would slap that bicep with his other hand as he dropped. It was just a thing. And the slap the chest on the lockup.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that a lot of guys started doing. Maybe they got it from somebody they used to watch when they were fans, or maybe somebody that trained them, or maybe they just started doing it, like I said, subconsciously. And it helps, even if they don't even think about it, it helps with their rhythm of what they're doing.
When I was a kid, before I knew anything, sometimes you'd see some of those matches on primetime wrestling from the house shows, and it would just be a long headlock on the ground. And the guy would be slapping himself, slapping his opponent, slapping his arm. As a kid, I was like, they're signaling something. I just don't know what. This is such a unique way of communicating.
Actually, they were just trying to keep themselves busy. If you're trying to get out of it some way or another, you're slapping or whatever the fuck you're wrestling around, but really you're not, no. There are signals, but those aren't them. There are also ticks. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you can't tell the tick from the signal or the signal from the tick. And then we've talked about, that's why Harley Race and Cactus used to have the squeals and the screams, and Harley Race used to have the and other guys, the old timers especially, when everything was called in the ring, they used to have that steady cadence, where they could say things under their breath and it wouldn't be as noticeable if they were making some kind of noise. Always. It depends on the individual.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Rob in Washington, Illinois. I know you both have admitted to being fanhousens of Danhausen, and I have to admit he has grown on me watching Ring of Honor. I was wondering how Jim would pitch Danhausen to Vince McMahon.
I don't have any idea. Because remember, I've never seen the guy wrestle. That would kill it for me. I'd probably hate him. I've only seen him do the weird promos, and I'm morbidly intrigued. But I've avoided watching him wrestle on purpose because I don't want my bubble burst. So I don't know how the fuck I'd sell him to Vince, except, hey, watch his promo, see if you get a tickle out of it. But then I wouldn't sell anybody to Vince sight unseen anyway.
Would you hire him if you were going to launch a new horror show, like a Svengoolie on a new network?
Yes. And here's your host of Creature Features, Danhausen. And he could be very evil and plan to make lots of gold to buy a rocket car.
Jim, our next question, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com here in this squeaky chair, was sent by, it appears, Matthew. Rank these performers based on wrestling ability.
Oh, good Lord.
Feel free to add any other performers who were not good wrestlers but were booked as main eventers. Jim, rank in order the best worst wrestler. Ultimate Warrior, Goldberg, Thunderbolt Patterson, Hulk Hogan, or Vince McMahon. Or Vince McMahon, I guess I should say.
Oh my God. Okay, wait a minute. Well, as far as professional wrestlers in the ring, as far as can you perform a professional wrestling match, that has to be Hulk Hogan out of this crew. Imagine that. Hulk finally got to be the best worker. I would have to say that next, to be honest, in terms of in-ring talent, God damn it. See, here's the thing. You would say Goldberg what he could do well, and if you kept him from doing anything he shouldn't do, he was fine. Thunderbolt Patterson had a 20-something year career, and there was a point in time in his youth where he was better than he was in his dotage. But I would have to put Goldberg next, then Thunderbolt, just because he did wrestle for 20 years and he had the basic idea of the headlock and hip toss down. Then Vince, and then Warrior number 5, because Vince had actually better, more memorable matches than Warrior did when he'd never wrestled before and he was almost 60. So don't you think that's worth something?
I do, and I do think Vince was probably better than the Warrior. When you were a fan, let's say pre-1982, who were the worst wrestlers you saw that you thought, my God, these are really awful wrestlers?
Oh, God. See, back then, and even though pre-82, when I started to get smart, it was the 70s, and then you could kind of understand why people were in places, even if they weren't very good.
Did you see Tex McKenzie in the 70s?
I was about to say.
I knew it.
But going back to the early 70s, where the early and mid 70s, Plowboy Frazier would fit into that category, except he had matches with Lawler that I saw that, my God, they tore the house down and I couldn't wait to see it again. And that's the only time I've ever put Plowboy Frazier in that category. Tex McKenzie was in the territory the same time as Big Bad John.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
And Big Bad John, for those who don't know, was a real biker gang member that had somewhat of from what we've heard, and I wish somebody like Hornbaker would do a piece on him, but bio on him, because they weren't sure for years that he was really dead or where he came from or all the things that he did. But anyway, Big Bad John was noted as being possibly the greatest promo in wrestling, with a look and a voice and a command of language that could call the heavens down on top of you. You hear me what I'm telling you? I mean, amazing promo, and a 6 foot, easily 6 inches tall, if not more, 325 pounds, long, scraggly, looked like Charles Manson if he was 6'6" and 325. He could be a heel and be evil, or he could be a babyface, and the people would love him. He and Bill Dundee in 1976 teamed up as the Southern Tag Team Champions. Big Bad John was the bicentennial baby. Big Bad John. Woo! What it is. And the people loved him. Without a doubt, the worst individual wrestler in the ring you have ever seen in your life.
Wow.
That's why that for most of including when he was in Australia for Barnett, and in a lot of his runs in Tennessee, he was a manager or a player coach where he had the group around him, right? So he didn't have to wrestle, but he was the world's largest manager. But Barnett used him because of that promo in Australia as a manager, a leader of a group of heels. Big Bad John had a single match with Tex McKenzie in the Louisville Gardens one night. And I guess they realized when they got there what they had done by booking that thing. And so they introduced the competitors. Tex McKenzie turned around to put his jacket on the ring post. Big Bad John jumped him from behind and got disqualified. And then Tex made a comeback, and Big John rolled out of the ring and left. The time on the match was 0.00. So, yes, I did get to see them, and that was, yeah. I mean, there were just some, and especially as Bruiser's territory aged out in the late 70s, early 80s, a guy named Tiny Tim Hampton, who may or may not have been related in some fashion. There were stories, because I know Bobo Brazil and Hank James were supposed to be half brothers, I believe, maybe full brothers. But Tim Hampton had been running around with Bobo Brazil in Michigan for years or whatever, but this is a time he had to be just the same age as Bobo. I saw him wrestle Bobo in 1981 in Indianapolis, and it was just brutal because they were both, well, they would have been closing in on 60 each, and it was embarrassing, kind of phony work, the embarrassing stuff. And you'd see that with, in those days with the old timers that could not quit because they couldn't financially quit, and they'd go to Kansas City, or they'd be on maybe one of those IWA TVs or some small promotion that would get television, and it'd be embarrassingly see-through, where they were still trying to do the shit they used to do, but they couldn't anymore. And a lot of guys, you can't, say that a guy that you saw that was stunningly bad in 1982 was always bad, because when he started wrestling in 1957, he was probably pretty good to make it 25 years. It's just that the way you saw him, you're like, oh, shit. A lot of people saw Harley Race in the WWF and didn't get it, but they didn't see him the previous 30 years.
Hey, Jay Strongbow in the early 80s. You talk to anyone who saw him when he debuted in the 70s, in the early 70s, they tell you he was their favorite wrestler. Go watch Jay Strongbow in 82, 83. Oof.
Well, and I mean, let's face it also, the competition, the field up in the Northeast was not, fucking dog eat dog either. There weren't a lot of, not only were there were always great workers working there, but they weren't expected to work hard, nor were they expected to go long, nor was it expected to be complicated. But Strongbow had been, as Jay Scarpa, had been a main event babyface in the 60s in the Southern Territories, where you did have the best talent and you had to be able to hang. And he was a young guy and in good shape, and, he could make a fiery comeback. But by the time 1982 came around, he was fucking 40-something years old in a company that he knew he was made in, and that they didn't expect match quality to begin with. So what are you going to get?
Well, Jim, that's ranking the wrestlers. Let's talk a little bit more about rankings and statistics, because there are so many people out there who love statistics, and maybe you love them so much that you're not just a stat fan, maybe you're a stat hero.
There's a lot of people out there that are tired of getting killed by the daily fantasy sports experts. Well, you shouldn't play the experts. You should play the house with Stat Hero, because you don't watch just sports. You follow the players and the plays. And you get the daily fantasy sports book that rewards passion with winning when you deal with Stat Hero. Now, like we've said, I don't know nothing about birthing these professional sports or betting on same, but I guarantee you that if you're a person who likes to bet on sports, Stat Hero can help you out. I mean, can anybody explain to me how Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson can blow up like that? Can anybody explain to me who Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson even are? I didn't know they existed on this planet, but Stat Hero can. If you don't know who they are, Stat Hero can tell you too. Stat Hero can tell you all kinds of things about this shit that we know nothing about. Just need to outlast these 10 jokers and the full $1,500 pot will be mine. That's the kind of things you say when you deal with Stat Hero, and you know what the fuck they're talking about. But here's how it works. Good, I'm glad I found this line. Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. You name the stakes. It's winner take all. Well, I guess we should suppose that would be the case. I don't know why the loser would get anything. They're just a loser. They need to be run out of town on a rail with feathers stuffed up their asses. But you name your stakes, winner take all, folks. With Stat Hero, you've got the advantage because Stat Hero is showing you their lineups ahead of time, and nobody else does that. And if somebody did it to me, you know what I'd say? I'd say, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at anyway. However, you playing with Stat Hero are in total control. It's DFS, the way it was meant to be. What is DFS, you say? Oh, I'm Daily Fantasy Sportsbook. I thought...
I was worried.
It was one of those codes you see on Pornhub, actually. I thought that is what it most often searched, DFS. It was, anyway, folks, if you go to stathero.com/JCE and you sign up for free right now, you can get 100% bonus match on your first deposit using the promo code JCE. They're matching your first deposit. So what do you got to lose? Apparently your first deposit, that would still be in there, but you're going to win. Think of it that way. Go to stathero.com/JCE and enter promo code JCE for a 100% first deposit match. Because, folks, the last thing you want to do when you're playing daily fantasy sports is get your ass kicked. But anyway, this is your show, Brian. The last thing I want to do is take over. Although we should mention, by the way, we haven't done this yet in the program. Congratulations to Travis Heckel, our erstwhile artist, who is getting better every day. He's going up the hill or down the hill or whichever direction he's going that's in a positive direction.
Up the hill.
Up the hill. I still don't know how that can be a good thing because I'm always upset when I'm having to go up a hill. But anyway, by the time that you hear this, folks, Travis may have contributed another piece of art or two to the YouTube channel, but we have told him that we're wanting him to ease back in gently into this cesspool instead of working him to death where his heart gets palpitations again and we got to plug him back into the wall. They had him plugged into a wall at one point, didn't they? Something that shocked the thing? I don't know.
I heard he's on steroids and now he weighs like 350 and he's all cut.
He's the Warlord.
He's the Warlord. Yeah, that's what I heard.
But anyway, nevertheless, Travis, so you may have seen a piece or two of art from Travis as he winds and worms his way back into his normal routine, but we've still got a ton of guest artists in the pipeline that are going to be taking up the rest of the slack until he's back on his full regimen, his full schedule. When can he eat solid food again?
I don't know.
Have we heard about that? Because
we have not heard anything about that.
Well, no. I didn't mean to tell everybody that, but he had the stomach stapling operation.
No, he didn't. Don't tell people that. That's not even remotely true.
Well, when he got up to 612 pounds.
Oh, God.
I'm just kidding. He can't weigh a pound over 500. Anyway, Travis is getting better, so you may see one or two of his pieces of art pop up this week as he gets back in the swing of things. And we have some other fine artists that are contributing their efforts to our YouTube channel, official Jim Cornette, that we should plug.
We have had some extraordinary artists. I want to mention a few more. We've mentioned several the last few weeks. I encourage everyone, go through the different videos, see the artists, go to their Instagram pages, check out their work. Great stuff. Mikey Brown from Rose City Tattoo in Springfield, Ohio. You can check out his stuff, Instagram.com/Mikey Brown Tattoo. He has done some incredible pieces. There was one the other day, Jim, of you with the trophy for best and worst promo.
Yeah.
And it was just gorgeous. And so many people love that artwork. So thank you to Mikey Brown from Rose City Tattoo. Also want to thank Rick Lonan, a longtime friend. You can go to Instagram.com/Rick Lonan. Rick was able to do a piece last minute, turned it around quickly last week. So thank you, Rick. And of course, if you are an artist and you've seen some of the guest artists submitting work to the channel and you're interested, get in touch, CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. And we thank everyone who's been helping us out for the past couple weeks.
Yes, we applaud all their fine work. And once again, glad Travis is feeling better. We'll be worming him back into the to the mix as he perks up.
Jim, this next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Chris Gurnett in North Tonawanda, New York.
That's got to be a fictitious location.
It's no secret that Bruce Pritchard is the biggest Vince McMahon butt kisser on the production side.
No, now wait a minute. Kevin Dunn is going to take exception to that.
Now, let's clarify this, because everyone's always talked about Bruce, and we all know the realities of Bruce, and the realities of that reality doesn't matter to Bruce. It's really, he just says whatever he thinks he should say in the moment. It's always been said that he is a magnificent ass kisser. I mean, hey, that's why he's there right now. Is Kevin Dunn the same thing? Is it the same kind of relationship with Kevin and Vince and Bruce and Vince in terms of the ass kissing? What do you think?
I think it's even more egregious with Kevin Dunn because he doesn't know nearly as much about the wrestling business as Bruce does. So he just tries to sit there and he looks like a little Renfield sitting next to Vince. And I heard this story secondhand, but I trust the source, and it's indicative of Kevin Dunn that he always wants to say something to Vince to get Vince they want to share a laugh, or he wants to get Vince to give him a pat on the shoulder. They've had a moment, right? So he had heard Vince say that one of the girls, and this was years ago, but that one of the girls needed some tits. So they're all on their big corporate plane they got after the big stock scam, and the girl's name comes up, and the way it was related to me is Kevin was sitting there rubbing his hands together and kind of snickering like Renfield would over a juicy fly or a spider, and he said, "She needs to get some tits, doesn't she, Vince?" Like that, it's just. But he doesn't know that he will contribute nothing relating to wrestling because he still, after all these years, doesn't even realize they're in the wrestling business, but he'll always try to bond with Vince over some manly comment or some real sport that he can refer to or something that he can get over with Vince by saying that he knows ahead of time Vince will agree with. If that makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Back to this question here. Which wrestler do you think kissed Vince McMahon's ass the most? So not Bruce, not Kevin Dunn, not the officials or agents, but which wrestlers?
See, I don't, because I wasn't sitting in a room with all of every one of Vince's meetings with all the people that were kissing his ass. So I don't want to say that one particular wrestler was the biggest ass kisser when I didn't see every display of that was ever held. And most of the time when the guys are kissing Vince's ass, they're doing it in private. They don't want witnesses. They don't want to do it right out in front of enough people that everybody's going to, in the locker room, going to be saying, Jesus Christ, he was blowing Vince and tickling his taint and had his finger up his ass, whatever the fuck, right? So in the one-on-ones or in the days of texting, they didn't have texting back in those days, thank fucking God. But I'm sure it's done more of a one-on-one or a private nature, which indicates that the biggest ass kissers are the ones that can get access to Vince, and then they perpetuate that ability to have access by continuing to kiss ass. But I'm not going to bury somebody that I don't even know whether they'd rank in the top 10 realistically, and it's been so many years.
So there was no one you saw there. I mean, when you were having all the problems with Shawn Michaels, would you consider him?
But see, here's the thing. That's a horrible way to ass kiss. But you don't kiss a guy's ass by making yourself his biggest pain in the ass in his life. That was the opposite of ass kissing. And that's why I never understood why he let those juvenile delinquents get away with everything they did. Because it was the opposite of ass kissing what they were doing. It was like, I'll give you a blowjob, but I've got sharp, gnarly teeth, and I'm going to rip your dick to shreds. Well, fuck, I'll just do without, thank you. That wasn't kiss-assing that most people that want their ass kissed would want to have perpetrated on them. I won't drop the belt. I won't show up. I'll start a riot in Little Rock because they're throwing shit. I'll fucking take my ball and go home, if I don't like what's going on. That's not kissing somebody's ass. He just let him get away with it.
All right, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Chris Steiner.
Aha! The brother of Arnold Steiner and uncle of Rex Steiner.
My question relates to Rick Rude in the late 80s and early 90s WWF career. 1, why did Rick Rude never win the WWF title? He had it all and was an epic heel who was genuinely tough in the squared circle. And 2, Rick Rude didn't like being managed by Bobby Heenan, saying he can get his own heat and didn't need help. What other strong instances like this are you aware of? Was Rick correct to feel this way or not, as Bobby is a legend?
Well, both things can be true at the same time. Bobby was a great manager. I think that Rude probably needed Bobby less than anybody else that Bobby managed because he could do a good promo and he did have his own thing going. I think probably he was put with Bobby because Bobby generally got most of the real top guys back in those days. They had Rick Rude figured in, Ravishing Rick Rude. They were going to use him, so they didn't, put him with some flunky manager. They put him with Bobby Heenan. That automatically gave you main event status in the WWF. Now, whether Rude felt that way at the at the start, can be up for debate. I don't think Rude was as good when he got there as he was 2 or 3 years later after he had, had the run for a while and really perfected the thing. So maybe they thought he needed Bobby at the start. Maybe he did need Bobby at the start. Maybe he didn't later on. The point is, Rude never being the champion. Look what are we talking about? 1987 through 1992. Look who the fucking champions are. Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and the Ultimate Warrior. And Ric Flair. So, fuck. Just because you didn't win the title when those guys were eligible to be champion doesn't mean that you were treated like chopped liver. If it had lasted long enough, if he hadn't left and then come back, whatever, he may have got that title to begin with, or eventually. It was that fucking stage in Japan that he hurt his back on working with Sting, right, for WCW.
Yeah,
that was 94, was it?
I believe it would be late 94. I might be wrong, it may be 95, but I think 94.
So really, Rick had that run with the WWF, left and went to Atlanta and got hurt. And by the time he came back, he was under the Lloyds of London policy, and he was a personality / corner guy, bodyguard, whatever, but he wasn't wrestling. So because the timing was not right for him during that 3-year window that, Hogan, Flair, Savage, fucking Warrior had it, doesn't mean he would have never got it, but then he got hurt, and then, so now that changed the equation. But he definitely was, I think, good enough. He was one of the best working heels in the company at that period of time. He was big and muscular like Vince liked, but he could still bump and move because he was lean and more ripped than a bulky bodybuilder. He had the promo, and he had the look and the attitude. And that's the way that Rick Rude talked also, is the way when he had that in his voice, and that he could verbally, you could hear disdain when he wanted to fucking turn it on like that. And he was great. I've always used him as a classic example of a guy who in 1984 couldn't grab his ass with both hands. And 5 years later, after being given a couple of breaks and put in a couple of spots to work with a few veterans to get his shit together, to start to mature and learn, 5 years later, he's one of the best talents in the business. But it was a step-by-step process of going from territory to territory and taking something different from each place and being slowly moved up the ladder. And, but yeah, that just timing was the only reason why probably that of course, obviously, back in those days, Vince was not going to let a heel run with the belt for too long, but they still did get it at some point. But, it's just timing.
And he had the Intercontinental belt. He was aligned with the Heenan family when it was the top heel stable. And he thickened up after the fact. Like, he was still pretty skinny for the Warrior feud in 89. Got thicker, it seemed, and cut his hair in 90. By the time he was in WCW, he was a badass. Everyone talks about how he was a badass in real life. I didn't know that as a kid watching Ravishing Rick Rude. I thought he was a pussy with the fucking long hair and the fucking skinniness. And he's running from the Warrior. I didn't think he was tough. It wasn't until he cut his hair and got a little thicker and started wrestling more tough that I realized it.
Yeah, and by the way, when he was skinny, he was still fucking tough too. He just, and that's the thing. It was funny. I've told the story when he was just green in Louisiana, and Dennis tried to call a simple spot and he couldn't get it. That's another case of working with a guy to the way that he's presented. Because there was Rick Rude. He was tall. He had a good body. He was muscular. He was obviously strong. He was a fucking arm wrestling fucking champion. He was a badass, could fucking knock you out. But we had to treat him like a job guy because that's the spot he was in. And also he was green and he couldn't hold it up in the ring performing. But so we didn't go in like, well, this guy's a real legitimate badass, so we're going to work with him like he's a world beater. No, because he was being presented like an underneath green, inexperienced preliminary guy. So that's the way we worked with him. And he didn't get mad and beat everybody up because that's the way it was. But then 5 years later, as I mentioned, he's on top of the world because he's gone through that process.
To a point in the question before, beyond Rick Rude, but just looking at wrestling in general, you've talked in the past how you weren't necessarily pleased with being put with Mantar. I've never heard if he minded or didn't, but that was you being put with someone. Are there a lot of examples of wrestlers not wanting a manager or a specific manager and it being forced upon them?
I'm sure over the years in the territories, because a lot of times, see, here's where the not the best interest necessarily, but just the goals and aspirations of a wrestler clash with the goals and aspirations of a promoter or a booker. Because if an experienced heel that had been all around the country in different territories came into the Memphis territory during 1980 through 1984, chances are they would put him with Jimmy Hart. Now, that heel may think, well, what the fuck? I've always done my own promos. I've always done my own talking. I've worked all over the world or all over the country, blah, blah, blah. What the fuck? However, and he would be right in that respect, and it might be best for him if he did his own talking, but Jimmy Hart, the manager in Memphis, had more heat and was more over than any of the people in his stable. And anytime somebody went in the first family, it made them a bigger heel to the fans than if they just come in, especially if they'd never been in the territory before. And that necessitated Jimmy doing a lot of the talking and getting a lot of the attention. That was better for the booker and the promoter because it was better business, but it wasn't necessarily better for that individual heel who would rather be doing his own shit. But fortunately, the needs of the company and what's right for the overall business used to outweigh the desires or needs of the individual. And guys used to just either fucking do what they were supposed to do or goddamn go somewhere else. But now it's all about, well, we've got to cater to this one individual. Whatever he can do to get himself over, we can't stop that because it might be better for the whole company. We need to let him do whatever he wants to do. So sometimes a guy would want a manager, sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes if you were a pro like Bockwinkel and Stevens, neither one of those guys needed a manager, but when they were put together with Bobby Heenan, it worked and they could see it. And so then there wasn't a problem. I mean, I don't know if Mantar enjoyed being managed by me for one TV match and maybe a house show. I can't remember. It didn't go very long. But it was a rib on me because here's this fucking goof that they've brought in. And I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But he looked like a fucking idiot. He was completely unheard of. And they brought him in because somebody saw the picture and the moose head on his head and either were fans of Moose Cholak in his prime or just thought it'd be funny. And then they realized as they saw him standing there, well, this is going to be drier than a nun's twat. So they, Cornette, go out with him. And they were kind of fucking with me too. Like, see what happens here. And it was the shits because his timing was the shits and it was the shits of a match. And then I got out of it and he was there for a while and never did anything because they realized what they had. And I don't even remember passing a word with the guy. It's like, I've mentioned, I found out 10 minutes before he was going to go out that I was his manager. So I went up to him and said, I'm going out with you. Oh, okay. I don't know. It was not good.
All right. Well, Jim, a lot of wrestlers may or may not want their manager. A manager could be important. But what is certainly important is an advocate. Is the right attorney in your corner?
That's exactly right, because you need an advocate, you need a spokesperson, you need a guardian angel, if you will, to traverse the shark-infested legal waters of the jurisprudence system and deliver you safely to the other side while paying the ferryman with the money that he collected from your greedy and avaricious opponent in that particular suit. You know who I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the consigliere himself, this man.
Call Stephen P. News. show or two. Skills to the rest.
Brian, I was just mulling over in my mind. Did you hear me mulling while that music was playing? Mulling. I was mulling. I was mulling over in my mind all the different ways that Stephen P. New over the last few years has helped members of the cult of Cornette. I know there was a couple over in Minden, West Virginia, that he saved the entire town from their poisoned groundwater and the chemicals that were left that caused everybody to get cancer. He's defended people's rights and privileges after their hearing was damaged by the defective earplugs given to our service people. He's defended people's rights when they were assaulted in various unsavory ways by physicians at the Veterans Administration, our veterans that had gone for help. He assisted that sweet old lady in that car case against State Farm where they didn't want to be a good neighbor and got her $50,000. He has assisted numerous members of the cult of Cornette from all across the United States, or referred them to the right places, or taken up their cases himself. And he has gotten them paid and compensated for a variety of ailments or misfortunes or injuries or things that were caused by the disgruntlement, the malfeasance, the incompetence, or the lack of caring of others. And you can join, ladies and gentlemen, on that long list of people that have been helped if you go to newlawoffice.com or call 888-692-8084. Stephen P. New, besides being a sponsor of fine wrestling programming like All-Star Wrestling in West Virginia, he was a sponsor of the Fatu and Hammerstone title match in MLW. He's a sponsor of our fine programs, and he can be your torchbearer. He can carry your flag into battle just like the Patriot used to carry the stars and stripes into battle until the Hart Foundation and Kevin Dunn buried him. Anyway, newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084.
All right, let's get one or two more questions here and wrap things up. Jim, this next one was sent to Corny.
I got tamping to do. Tamping the mole runs.
I've heard, and this next question was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Matt in Stony Brook, New York. I was wondering if you could shed some light on how the heck Hulk Hogan was able to keep using the ring name Hulk Hogan when he jumped to WCW in the 1990s. It's my understanding that the WWF and Marvel Comics made a deal in 1984 over the Hulk name, with Marvel Comics owning the trademarks to Hulk Hogan, Hulkster, and Hulkamania for a period of 20 years. When the deal expired in 2004, to my understanding, Hulk Hogan himself bought the copyrights. It seems weird to me that Vince, who is notorious for not letting wrestlers use their WWE names to sign autographs, let alone in another organization, would let this fly, especially with the biggest star he ever had going into a rival promotion. How did this work exactly, and why was Hogan an exception when other WWF stars who jumped ship had to give up their names?
Well, boy, we should have had Steven call in to help answer this question, but I'll try to take a swing at it. Help me, Brian, on some of the finer points of the logic. We're not talking about the name Hulk Hogan. He could have been Hulk McGee, Hulk Hogan, Hulk fucking Schwarzenegger. The Hulk name was the one that was in the bone of contention with Marvel Comics. Hulk Hogan had been using the name The Hulk in some form, in some place, since 1970, what was it, late 78, early 79, when he came to Memphis. Terry the Hulk, early 79.
That's right.
Terry the Hulk Boulder.
That's right. I was going to say also, and it became even bigger when it became the Incredible Hulk Hogan, because then all of a sudden, it's a bigger trademark issue.
Yes, and so Terry the Hulk Boulder wrestled in Memphis in 79 and also used that name somewhere else, but he was Sterling Golden in Atlanta. Was he Sterling Golden or was he the Hulk in Continental? I'm trying to think.
He was never in Continental. He was in Southeastern.
Southeastern, same thing.
He was Terry the Hulk Boulder, I believe. Okay,
so the point is he had prior usage in a wrestling aspect of the name the Hulk. So when Hulk Hogan was given to him by Vince Sr., And then they started using the Incredible Hulk Hogan. That's when he got on the radar of Marvel Comics, and that's when they had to make the deal. But the deal was not made with the between Marvel Comics and just the WWF. It was the WWF was paying for Hulk Hogan to be able to call himself Hulk.
Licensing rights.
Because he'd done it before, but Marvel didn't know about it because he wasn't a big deal. And he gets to be a big deal on New York TV. Now Marvel's in on it. But the thing is, as long as somebody kept paying Marvel, and this is where, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, from what you know about it, as long as somebody kept paying Marvel, it didn't matter whether it was Vince McMahon in the WWF or not. Hulk Hogan could be Hulk Hogan if he honored the deal that was made. So when he went to WCW, I would assume they started paying for that.
Although I think you're right, but I want to say, and I may be completely wrong about this, I have to go back and check, it's been a while. I want to say this may have played into him becoming Hollywood Hogan instead of Hulk Hogan. They completely rebranded him. He was still Hulk Hogan. True. But they just called him Hollywood Hogan for a while there, for a good while.
Maybe that was while they were working all those details out. But the point is that it was not an invention of Vince McMahon Jr. or Sr. to call Hulk Hogan the Hulk. Vince Sr. added the Hogan. He had already called himself the Hulk. So there was prior usage to the point where if something was going to be licensed, which by that point it was so important that he be the Hulk of some kind, that it had to be licensed, that it was going to be done one way or the other. But to the caller's point, it wasn't a slip up of Vince McMahon letting one of his wholly owned creations go. The guy had been in the business, had been in the Hulk before the WWF run.
Jim, what may be our final question here, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie.
Goddamn, I was about to say it better not be from Mr. Go Home Heat himself.
In Starkville, Mississippi. There have been reports that Braun Strowman is headed to Impact Wrestling.
Good for him.
Strowman even hinted on Twitter that his new name in Impact would be Titan. What are your thoughts on Strowman heading to Impact, and does Titan pass the name test?
Well, it's a rib. It's like Virgil. It's a rib. They're going to bring him in and call him Titan after Titan Sports. Vince, what Bill Watts said, Vince, there's only room for one Titan at Titan Sports. I don't know enough about Impact Wrestling because I don't give a shit enough to know who's there or what their talent roster is. I don't know who's going to be tearing the house down with old Strong Bro Man. I don't care whether he's called Titan or Tits McGee, one or the other. I don't really think that's going to help them out of their current situation. The company that once brought in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff together and lost TV ratings, I don't think Strong Bro Man or Titan or Tits McGee, either one, is going to help them out on their own.
Well, one more question in regards to this when it comes to Titan or Tits McGee or whatever we're calling him. Charlie also said, Braun Strowman recently complained about how time-consuming his WWE schedule was. Strowman said, quote, I was very fortunate in my time with WWE, but it was very, very time-consuming. I didn't have a lot of time to do other things. So now during my downtime, when I'm trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, I get an opportunity to go out and, explore different avenues, try different things, and I'm enjoying it. Charlie says, Jim, what are your thoughts on Strowman's take on unemployment?
Well, I'm glad he's got so much free time. But again, I realize that to the guys involved, they do think that the WWE schedule is hectic. And especially with the pain in the ass, I think even people who enjoy flying air travel now admit that it's a giant pain in the ass. It's so much worse than it ever used to be before, even if you enjoy that procedure. But Jesus H, heavenly titty fucking Christ. They worked 4 days a week when they were on the full schedule. Good Lord, we would have thought that was a part-time job 30 years ago. Again, unless you work literally 30 days a month for 2 or 3 months in a row, every day in a different city, and do 4,000 miles a week in a car and work twice on Saturdays and twice on Sundays, I can't feel sorry for you because it's not anything that we all didn't do back in those days. And we've admitted we have no idea how we got through it and couldn't do it again. But for the guys flying everywhere and making the money they're making and working 4 whole days a week and just once a day, please, my asshole bleeds for you.
Okay, that means you don't feel bad for him, just for the record. And with that...
Well, you, Mr. fucking Contradiction, you don't know what you mean.
Well, I don't want to
be saying one thing and meaning another.
I don't think I contradict anything. I just want to make sure for YouTube they understand what you're saying and that we're not ending on that note.
Well, yes. Well, we can end on a different note then for YouTube if that's what we're trying to do.
That's what we are trying to do.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, waterfalls.
That wasn't the note. That certainly wasn't the note. But with that, the drive-thru is closed.
Oh, good Lord.
All right, free bird
Sounds
today.
like a drunken gopher stuck inside a xylophone.
Now you know how I feel. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to The Drive-Thru. We'll be back next week with another brand new episode, of course, in English. And of course, the Jim Cornette Experience returns this weekend wherever you
know what we ought to do? We ought to come back next week and replay an episode from 3 years ago and see if anybody notices.
I think everyone would notice.
Well, then they could get a prize.
We won't be doing that, but you can listen in to hear what we will be doing. And of course, the Jim Cornette Experience, wherever you find your favorite podcast. I hear that it is very, very popular. Check that out today. Of course, you can access classic episodes of The Drive-Thru and The Experience by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to the archive going back to the very beginning in 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Don't forget about the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. Full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, of course, the amazing Travis Heckel artwork, and all the amazing guest artists for the last couple weeks. Check it out today, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel.
You sound like Pat Patterson. And the people went banana.
You can follow me on Twitter at, I was about to say Jim. You can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com once existed. It was once a site of commerce where people can go and buy and spend and purchase, but no longer. What is the story?
jimcornette.com is up. And it's a fine website. I encourage you to go to it and visit it. The sales of Cornette's Collectibles have been suspended for the next 6 or 7 weeks so we can get everybody the stuff they've already purchased by Christmas.
Of course, The Drive-Thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. Until this weekend on the Jim Cornette Experience, and next week, right back here on The Drive-Thru. For Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!
Ho, ho, ho.
Am I invisible?